If you're a graphic designer or artist and you'd be interested in making some Dissecting the 80s merch, hit us up at dissectingthe80s@gmail.com. This is not us looking to not pay a person, so we've got some Patreon money. Might want to commission some merch, so reach out if you are one of the folks who makes those kind of things and would like to talk to us. This podcast is brought to you by our supporters at Patreon. Visit patreon.com/dissectingthe80s to find out how you can get dozens of bonus episodes of this show, a monthly newsletter telling you what's coming soon on the show and the stuff we've been watching, and a whole lot more. Visit patreon.com/dissectingthe80s to learn more. As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a podcaster. Welcome to Dissecting the 80s. I am Tripp Lano. It is Favoritsbuary, and we are watching an American masterpiece with my tag team partner, the Tommy, maybe? I mean, you're certainly not a Jimmy Conway. To my Henry Hill, the Macho Man.
Andrew Lano. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll take Tommy.
I feel like you got a little bit of the simmering rage.
Yeah. That's also just called being queer in 2024.
Yeah, sure, exactly. A recording I have been anticipating and fearing in equal portions for well over a month. We are finishing out Favoritsbuary on the main feed. We will have a very special episode on, as always, Ollie Hoop Noodle's Haven of Bliss, as we do every Leap Day, the classic film that we revisit every time it's Leap Day, but closing out the main feed here with a movie that I love very much, had not revisited in a long time, watched with my wife and continue to have capital L love for. But we'll get into all that because we watched Goodfellas, and you know what that means.
We gotta go back. We gotta go dissect the 80s. It's your thinly sliced garlic. So we're gonna do thinly sliced garlic.
When the mega powers explode.
I'm talking about the 80s. Oh, yeah.
Great Scott!
Cream of the crop. Oh, yeah.
Mega powers, yeah!
When this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're gonna see some serious shit.
So I have a question that I must ask before we get into all of it. Did you have to eat Italian food after? Did you properly prepare? Because I feel like I had given you that.
I didn't, but I want it.
Okay. We had found in the freezer some assorted meatballs and sausage that goes with this.
I think I have some of that in the back of the freezer somewhere.
Yeah, we had like an extra. We had more spaghetti meat than sauce the last time we made it, and I forgot about this bag of spaghetti fixins, so we made like a quick little bit of red sauce and made spaghetti after, because I was like, I cannot watch this movie and not have Italian food to follow it up. So
yeah.
Must do. So I was curious if you had.
No, I do want it, but I did not eat it.
Yeah, I mean, you can't not want it after watching this movie. It is like one of the food porniest films that ever existed.
Oh, fully.
Yeah. Well, I'm a little hesitant to ask the question, but I think I gotta know. Like, what's your we'll get into the minutia, but what's your big picture thoughts?
So, do you remember when you watched Doctor Strange: The Multiverse of Madness and were texting me about it?
Yeah.
And there was a certain point, because you know how much I love Scarlet Witch, and
yeah, and
you texted me at one point and you said, you are fully aware that she's the villain of the piece, right?
Yeah.
So I think that straight men view this movie and like Scarface and shit like that in the same way that queer people, particularly queer men, watch movies about superpowered women, like Scarlet Witch, Angelica Houston in The Witches, Famke Janssen as Jean Grey and Phoenix, with the same kind of reverence. So, like,
I wouldn't say I have reverence for Henry.
You don't, but I think
I see what you're saying. Certainly there was a time in my life when I did.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying. I'm not saying you're wrong. I get what you're saying, but
the broad strokes men who have a Scarface poster on the wall. I just wanted to say
words that weren't just like 9 times while you were talking. I felt like I had to put a sentence in there. So continue. I don't want to step on your point.
So as soon as that, like, clicked in my head. I was like, I have a feeling that like that's sort of the parallel here, and that like the way I have such a reverence and I don't know, projection is maybe not the right word, but like fantasy sounds a little extreme, but like the way I can like put myself into the Scarlet Witch movie as like an escapism. That's the word. As like Scarlet Witch and like magical powerful women are my escape. So I just kind of calibrated my organ in order to do that. And I get it.
I think that is like an incredibly cool thing to do with a movie that is like not your bad. Like I appreciate that like that's a thing I have actively tried to do, and sometimes I'm good at it and sometimes I'm bad at it, but like trying to appreciate things that like explicitly aren't for me, I think is like a cool thing you can do if you appreciate an art form. Like I know you appreciate movies.
Yeah, and like so I get. Obviously, I don't get straight men. A lot of the times, like, are straights okay? Are the straights okay? But like, I get why I quote unquote identify with this movie and these characters, because it's like obviously like I'm not a witch who murders people, but right. Boy, have I said several times like the world is lucky I don't have Scarlet Witch reality powers, because like we'd be in a Westview so fucking fast. What the many times I have it close to emotional breakdown. So like I get it.
I think the character in this movie that people most have the feelings you're describing for is actually Paulie.
Fully. At the end when I was like, Paulie got arrested? Spoiler alert. Sorry. I was like, they got Paulie too?
Yeah, but the there's a lot of really great lines in this movie, and I'm sure we're going to talk about some of them, but the one that I like always have loved is like, Paulie didn't move slow, but that's only because Paulie didn't have to move for anybody. Like that is the ultimate expression of power in the movie, is that like this guy is the king of the universe in the way it's expressed. But one of the things I found really interesting on this particular rewatch of this movie, and again, this is a movie I've talked about this on the podcast before, but like this is the episode on Goodfellas, so this is where most of this stuff's going to come out, and you might hear some stuff you've heard before. It was like the first times I watched this movie, I like was playing football in high school, and like I was fully wearing the mask of masculinity, right? Yeah. And that's not to say that like it's a mask that I like put on in a fake way, but just like, you know, I have grown as a person and think about the world in a lot different ways than I did when I was 17, and I frankly think that's very good.
Yeah,
that most people
you should look at the world differently at 17 versus 27 versus 37.
Right. 37. Right. Yeah, exactly. And so, you know, I've watched this movie at many stages of my life, and you know, I'll tell you, I'll be straight up, like there was a time when I really wanted one of these shirts that was like blue, but the collar was white. I thought that looked cool as shit. I never bought it, but I did want that shirt.
That was what it was like a Gordon Gekko shirt too, right?
I think you might be right. I've only watched Wall Street once and didn't super love the movie.
Or rather, just like even though it 80s businessman kind of.
Yeah. It's, I mean, certainly is an 80s era piece of clothing for sure. But like, you know, I was a very physically strong person, and my identity was built around being a very big, strong person who played football and did all these things.
And Italian, we had the Italian identity for a while.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, yeah, we're our father's Italian, our extended family on that time on his side is Italian. It would not surprise me if we were distantly related to some people who relate to this movie very specifically.
Allegedly. We don't need.
Yeah, I frankly don't know that I've ever even met them, but they perhaps exist. You know, it would not surprise me one iota to be like, oh yeah, okay, sure, that makes a lot of sense. Where you grew up and where that is. And so like
oh, you mean like that story Mom told where?
Yeah, kind of like that maybe. But so like, you know, this movie, power is granted to those who physically can grasp it, right? Mm-hmm. All the expressions of power in this movie are wielded by the physically strong, maybe not like physically strongest in that they punch the hardest, but like the ones willing to do the most dastardly deeds have the most power. They're the strongest, the most ruthless people.
And like, so obviously I hear what I'm about to say could be groan worthy to people, but I think it would be fascinating to see a movie like this where the Henry Hill character is black or queer or a woman, and then we can kind of add on that like Oren Ishii layer of like, there's one thing you cannot fucking talk to me about. And if that is my queerness, my womanhood, my blackness,
Sure.
I collect your fucking head. Where like everyone's scared, but people are kind of like, well, how is that person so? And like, you shut up.
The thing that you're looking for is called The Wire.
That's like 10 seasons, isn't it?
No, it's 5. All of them are great. It's like 50 episodes. Omar is a black gay man who is the most ruthless killer and most feared person in the community.
Work.
It is he is an evil man who you kind of root for, and that is.
Look, I'm here for gay rights and gay wrongs.
Yeah, it's a great performance. It's a wonderful performance. Unfortunately, I think that actor passed away a couple years ago.
Was he in anything else?
He was in a bunch of stuff. Most memorably for me, he was also in Community, where he, kind of had his gruff, scary demeanor, but was kind of nicer. I feel like his first name was Michael, but I cannot remember the actor's name, so forgive me. And we have too much to say about this podcast for me to look up who played Omar. Funny enough, there will be another The Wire connection later, as Isaiah Whitlock has a small role in this movie as a doctor, and he's also Clay Davis on The Wire.
Okay.
But what struck me in watching it this time is something I never put together before. But when you see young Henry's home life, you see the way that his father only really communicates with him through physical violence, right?
And shouting.
Doesn't really, we never, yeah, right. And, or verbal violence, I suppose. I maybe stretching the bounds there, but go with me on my slightly belabored analogy. But like, there's never any moments where Henry Hill has like a nice spot with his dad, right? The dad's yelling or screaming and then like beating the absolute shit out of him with a belt. And then he goes into his neighborhood, and all of the people in his neighborhood who have power and respect are the physically toughest, baddest men, right? And it's just like, of course this guy ended up this way.
Yeah.
Like, how else could he? Like,
he lived in the world of toxic masculinity, like the most toxic of masculinity.
Right. And like, his brother doesn't, but his brother is confined to a wheelchair early in the movie. And so, like, of course they didn't have the room in their space for somebody with a disability, right? Mm-hmm. Like, that world wouldn't accommodate that person. And so, like, and not to say that they would, like, beat up that guy, right? It's just that, like, he couldn't be one.
Someone could be in the group and then get in a wheelchair and stay in the group.
Yes.
But someone in a wheelchair is not joining the group.
Absolutely.
Like, if Paul Sorvino's character ended up in a wheelchair, they would not, like, wheel him out to greener pastures.
Three guys would carry that chair around.
Yes.
They wouldn't let the wheels touch the ground unless it was stationary. It would be like,
no, it would be like in Batman and Robin when Poison Ivy's walking over the men. It's just a line of men laying down, getting up, running to the front of the wheelchair so it doesn't touch the dirt.
There would be like a 2.5 foot by 2.5 foot Oriental rug that one guy would carry rolled up and would unroll, and they would
like a scroll.
Yeah. And then when it was time to leave, like, the 4 guys would pick up the chair, the 5th guy would roll up the carpet, they would carry Paulie where he wanted to go, they'd put it down and roll the carpet.
Exactly.
It would be like that. But yeah, and it was just like, it just dawned on me in watching this, and like I said, I've seen this movie countless times practically, and it was just like, oh, like, I've never, like, and again, like, I think this movie's a masterpiece. I think it's like one of the best, examples of like great American cinema, of which there are dozens and dozens. It's not like,
I think it's too long. I like it, but I think it's too long.
Okay, that's fine. This is one of those movies that I think is like a hangout movie, and like, if you're vibing with it, you don't care. You're just kind of luxuriating and hanging out in the space. But I completely understand if the movie's not super vibing with you, how that makes sense. But it just like has so many layers to it, and as I said, there's so much stuff you can pick up. Like, this is more than the 10th time I've watched this movie easily, and it's just like, oh, I've never made that very obvious connection that the movie wants you to make before.
Hopefully the movie wants you to make that connection.
No, I think it would be a real discredit to Martin Scorsese to act like he doesn't understand what he's doing. I think people really don't give him the credit that he deserves for, like, of course he knows the people in this film are bad guys, but he's like, they're compelling to watch, and that's why we're making a movie about them. It's not that I think they're, righteous people. And I think there's a lot of idiots out there that it's just like, oh, if you make a movie about a bad person, that means you endorse the bad person. It's like, no, the Martin Scorsese the actions of
the problem is that nothing exists in a vacuum. And like, while it's this, like on Schitt's Creek, Dan Levy.
I've always said Eugene Levy.
Levy. So Dan Levy
Yeah.
specifically said he was like, not one person in the town of Schitt's Creek will ever have anything negative to say about the fact that David is queer. Period.
Sure, yeah.
Because the second you put that character in a space, all of a sudden there are 8,000 people plus millions that are going, oh, that character's got it right. That's the good character in this show. And it's like,
yeah.
Nothing exists in a vacuum. It doesn't matter what your intentions are with your creation or whatever. Once you've willed it into existence, how other people take it is valid, and it sucks.
Right.
But like,
yeah, this is like the Sopranos paradox of like, there were a lot of people who were like, I wish Tony would get back to doing the good shit where he was killing people all the time. Like, you know, when it was like, he's doing too much of this therapy bullshit. Go kill a guy. Whack.
I thought therapy was like a big part of the whole show the whole time.
No, it was. It was always like episode 1. It may even start in the therapist's office, to be honest with you. It's been a very long time since I've rewatched any Sopranos, but Lorraine Bracco actually plays the therapist. That was like kind of.
Oh.
Yeah. So I think, man, this is going back a long time. So grains of salt with this anecdote, because I did not look this up, but I feel that I recall that they wanted her to play what ultimately went to Edie Falco, the wife part, and she was like, no, I've done that before, but I would be very interested in playing this therapist.
Also, I feel like she would have been a little old to play his wife by the point that the time Sopranos was coming around.
Yeah, I don't think she would have been age inappropriate for Gandolfini. Like, I think they're probably closer in age than you might think, but you might be right. And again, that anecdote could be completely wrong. But in any case, she played Dr. Melfi, his therapist. And she's very good.
Is she his therapist the whole time? I mean, that could be a spoiler.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't like kill his therapist at some point, and like that's a plot point.
I don't know if she's in the show until the very end for a number of reasons, but I have no recollection of Melfi getting killed, and I feel like if anyone killed Melfi, Tony would have killed their whole family.
Got it.
Like, I think he had a lot of respect for her.
He would never have killed her.
No, yeah, that would be very. I feel like I would remember that. Maybe I don't. It was a long time ago when The Sopranos ended, but it was. That just seems like that would never have happened. He had a lot of love for her. Like, I don't know that it was romantic, although he definitely made passes at her over the course of the series. But I think he had a lot of respect for her, and like, it was an interesting premise, right? Like the idea of like, because frankly, Gandolfini is closer to Jimmy Conway than Henry Hill. Like, the idea of Jimmy Conway.
I've seen YouTube shorts of The Sopranos, and I know that he's a Jimmy Conway, not a Henry Hill.
Yeah. I'm rambling, obviously, but I just think it's like, even as evil as these people are, like, I think Henry is the least evil of our main characters. That's not to say I think he's not evil.
Not Paulie?
Henry is like, Paulie is the one orchestrating all of the killings and stuff. So I don't know.
Like, for some reason, my brain keeps saying Jimmy is the orchestrator. I think it's because it feels like at a certain point Jimmy takes over, even though he's not made.
Jimmy makes a lot of that decision making on his own for sure, but like Joe Pesci's death is orchestrated by Paulie for sure.
Oh, part of that. I didn't put that together.
Like like Paulie's the head of the family, and so that is like probably a conversation. Like when it comes out, we're gonna just spoil. I mean, whatever, we're gonna spoil this movie as we go. So sorry that we spoiled that. But spoilers abound. Don't listen to this podcast if you
just drop a spoiler at the beginning. Like, look, we're gonna
yeah. But normally we try to like go through the plot wise first. But the Pesci character, you know, the whole Billy Bats thing, like at some point they figured out what happened there, the other family, and I'm certain that the move was like they went to Paulie and they were like, you know, how do we handle this? And Paulie was like, the right move is that you kill the guy. Like, you know, I give you my blessing. Probably. Again, we don't see that scene.
I kind of like. I know I said this movie was too long, but I think without the concept of like the families, it like some things kind of get lost in translation.
I think a lot of it, honestly, is expecting that the audience knows a good deal of this stuff because you're making a movie
pretty contemporary
years after The Godfather. Yeah, but also it's like you're making a movie 15 years after The Godfather, which is like excruciating in the detail about that stuff.
Oh, is it really?
You just like, yeah. I mean, all of The Godfather is about like the.
It's like, is it like fucking Game of Thrones? Where it's like these are the families, and
I mean, not 100%, but not that. Like there is a lot about the different crime families and the Corleone family and this other the different families and the way that they offset. It's also been a long time since I watched The Godfather, so forgive me if I'm getting some of the details incorrect. But like there is like a war with one of the families that goes on in that, and like that all that stuff is in there. So I do think the movie is like expecting its audience to kind of know a bunch of this stuff as it goes in, which I think is I'm not telling you that's not a valid criticism. I'm just saying like in the context in which it was made.
That makes sense.
Like I think a lot of people kind of come in with that knowledge, but
and like I said, this movie was made like 3 years after Henry Hill was arrested. So like it's probably in the public like discussion.
Right. Yep. Absolutely.
It'd be like if they made a movie about Taylor Swift being at the Super Bowl in like 20 years, people would be like, I don't get it. They'd be like, oh no, that's all people fucking talked about for, I don't know, 4 months.
It was excruciating how much people are talking about it, to be quite honest with you. I don't dislike Taylor Swift, and I'm just like, she doesn't need to be in every section of the newspaper, guys. Just, it's fine if she's just in 2 of them.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't need to be, whatever. But anyway, I think we should just roll through it because there's a lot to talk about, and the plot will help kind of put us there. And so we have this it's
kind of a weird in media res choice.
Yes. Well, I think what it is like this movie wants to set you up for what you're going to watch, which is a violent movie, and there's this. It's not just that it's violent; it's that it's totally nonchalant about its violence. Like that they stab him 10 times, they shoot him 3 times in the trunk of this car, and it's just like, all right, we're done.
Well, I just mean in terms of like structure, it's just kind of like it's not that point in the movie doesn't feel particularly impactful. Like when it comes back around to it, I was like, oh,
yes.
And normally like that kind of thing is sort of a bookend. It would be like they're showing you the end of the movie, like with Crimson Peak. The movie starts with the end of the movie and then it comes back around. Like, I almost think they could have gotten away with doing like smash cuts of a bunch of violence inflicted throughout the movie, like a face stomp and a stabby stab and a gunshot. Like something that's more like a 30-second montage of like quick cuts showing.
See, so I've always viewed this as this is the reality, and then we jump from the dark, miserable reality to the like glitz and glamour of it with the voiceover of like, as far back as I can remember, I wanted to be a gangster.
Okay.
And then we have the kid very shortly after that. He's in the suit and he walks to the door, and mom's like, "You look like a gangster. What are you doing, my boy?"
And then they take an Uber out of the fucking movie.
They do take an Uber.
They get mentioned, I don't know, with 5 minutes left in the movie,
times.
And then I was like, wait, his parents aren't dead?
I always got the impression that like they basically cut him out. That's what I've always wondered. I don't know. I don't know the real story. And frankly, I think this movie exists well outside the real story of Henry Hill, and that it's like this is, even though it's based on a real person and these are all based on real people, that it's like this is a fictionalized account, and how much of it is real is probably, even though it's based on interviews with the real guy, it's like these people are all bullshitters and exaggerators, and like even the story he tells you as the air quotes truth is like extremely I'm skeptical of it as the true truth,
Yeah.
But I think that is always what I've viewed it as, is like you start with the reality, which is grim. He's murdering this man in a trunk in the most disgusting of way. Like he's like, it's not just like, oh, we poisoned this guy and got rid of him Agatha Christie style. It's like we
put a drop of poison on a rope that dribbled down into his goblet during dinner.
Yeah. No, it's like we beat the shit out of this guy, and then when we just realized we didn't kill him, we opened the trunk and finished the job with a meat cleaver. It's grim. It's grim. But that's what I've always viewed it as. But yeah, I mean, obviously that's my reading, not like an objective truth of it or whatever. We get that incredible. So another thing I've seen some like modern younger people review this movie and criticize it for, and like not to dunk on people, but just like people really don't like the voiceover, and I think a lot of voiceover in movies tends to be bad. I think voiceover really serves this movie well.
Yes, because this is well done, well executed voiceover. It's effective.
Yeah. And that it switches from different, like at some point it becomes Lorraine Bracco's voiceover.
That was great. That was such a fun twist.
Yes. Yeah, and I think that's like really vital to telling you like whose perspective we're watching this movie from, because it's usually when you watch a movie, you're kind of getting, again, like air quotes, artsy fartsy things here, but it's like you're getting the sort of the objective view of the room, right? It's sometimes you get a movie from a character's point of view. There are many movies that also
Aronofsky.
Goodfellas. Sure, but like I mean, thousands of movies are from a particular character's point of view. But I think what's interesting about this movie is that I think the voiceover is used to like make sure the audience is aware of whose point of view we're at now. It's like, oh, now we're watching the movie as Karen, or now we're participating in this movie as Karen. Now we're participating in this movie as Henry, and all that stuff really serves to me the movie and the message of it of like Henry is born into this world and really had no choice out of it, right? I mean, certainly there are people born in certain circumstances similar to Henry Hill that didn't become gangsters and like.
I mean, he didn't have to become a gangster. He was Italian-Irish. It's not like he was full Italian.
Yeah.
Which in movie speak is like you can either be a plumber, a pizza man, or a mafia man.
That's fair. That's fair. I guess I would say is like, based on the fact that the violence from his father and the violence of the community he lived in, like it's not surprising to me that this guy chose a life of violence.
Yeah.
Yeah. As opposed to something else. Obviously, many people don't make that choice. It's not as if it's the only choice, but like it's logical to me when it does that. But Karen obviously has nothing to do with this. Karen gets swept up into this world, and she has like sort of
she has the same energy as this world.
Yes.
She doesn't know it.
Yes.
But she has the same energy as that world.
And the longer she's with Henry, the more that takes over. And like that is that character arc I think is really interesting and really well done. That's like why I was said to you before is like Lifetime used to show this movie and people would make fun of it, but it's like Karen is a significant part of this movie, and the way that she participates in this story is vital and like a really interesting.
I could have used more Karen.
Yeah, I'm not surprised to hear you say that. But yeah, so this is going to be a tangent-y podcast, and it's probably going to be 4 hours long, and my wife's going to be like, "Could you please come eat dinner?" But I love young Henry, who's just like fully moon-eyed over these evil gangsters. Like these guys are bad people, and he just like can't get enough.
He's also 4 spaghettis and a mini marshmallow.
He's a tiny one.
He's what I also look. A lot of people look like his children, just 2 spaghetti legs, 2 spaghetti arms, and a little mini marshmallow body. Tall, thin, and blows in the breeze.
And this is like a perfect example of what I was talking about with My Blue Heaven, where it's like, you got a murderer's row of Goombas here. This is a Goomba.
Yeah, well, they were all making this movie. That's why they couldn't be in.
No. Yeah. In particular, you got Tony Sirico, who would go on to play Paulie Walnuts on The Sopranos. He doesn't have quite silver wings.
He was in White Lotus, right? That one?
No. Well.
Oh no, I'm sorry. Imperioli was in White Lotus.
Yes, Imperioli.
Who was also in this movie.
Imperioli also in this movie.
That's why I was confused.
There are a grand number of Sopranos people in this movie, because it's like if you're going to make a movie about it.
I'm surprised Gandolfini didn't show up.
Yeah, I don't know if he was around, or maybe he was doing theater then, or what, or maybe he was just too young. Yeah, I'm not sure. Also, Gandolfini, I'm sure he acted when he was younger, but I feel like he was one of those people that like broke out as an older man. Like The Sopranos was his big breakthrough, and he was, I don't know, 45, 50, whatever he was when he made that show. 35. I have no idea how old he was. You could tell me he was 30 or 50, and I would be like, yeah, that tracks.
Yeah, large-bodied Italian men kind of have that effect.
Yeah. And I love this. He does that line introducing Paulie about how he doesn't have to move for anybody. And we see these guys fucking with Paulie's brother. And all Paulie does is just stand in the doorway, and immediately it ends. And it's like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, And it's such a beautiful, like obviously the line tells you the thing, but then you see it perfectly illustrated in that sequence. And it's just like, oh, this is wonderful. Like, just like, it's just so like, just almost lyrical, I feel like, in terms of the way that it displays this stuff.
You want to hear something that's probably going to piss off a lot of people listening?
Yeah.
The only thing I know Paul Sorvino from is Repo the Genetic Opera.
I gotta be honest, I know him from this movie, but not a ton of things. Like
I assumed he was like very prolific outside of, but movies not made for me.
Paul Sorvino is prolific. I just don't know a ton of his stuff. I mean, he may have a part in The Godfather and not remembering it or whatever. And I'm certain that if I looked at his IMDb, I'd be like, oh, I've seen that. I've also seen Repo. But yeah, I mean, I know him from this movie, and you know, I know him from this movie, and then a lot of like cheap shit gangster drivel that came out in the '90s, where they just like put Paul Sorvino in to get a little clout, you know?
Yeah.
One of my favorite bits in this movie, and it's just a little passing thing, but they're talking about how their world works, and that they would like steal shit and then sell it at a discount, and just like, you know, it was all profit, so it didn't matter how much you sold it for, but they steal a shipment of these yellow sweaters, and then all of these tough guy gangsters are walking around in perfect Easter yellow sweaters as just like a bunch of little Hamptons.
The first time I saw that, I thought it because he kept saying the taxi stand, and I was like, oh, maybe it's like the cabbie sweater.
Yeah. So very early we get, you know, the violence.
His dad was Sheriff Meeker in Halloween 4 and 5, I think.
Oh, okay. Henry's dad.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We get this guy who got shot. He comes to the door trying to get help. And Henry, of course, is like grabbing these aprons and helping the guy into the thing. And Paulie's brother, who I think plays the big shot executive jerk in Wayne's World, if I'm not mistaken.
It's been a very long time since I've seen Wayne's World.
Frankie Sharp Records, the guy with the big limo at the end of Wayne's World, I'm pretty sure is Paulie's brother. I forgot to look that up as we're talking about this, but he starts yelling at Henry. He's like, "How many you wasted fucking 10 aprons on this guy? Like, I gotta clean all these aprons. You got blood on all of them. Like, this schnook, we don't have to worry about him." And it's like, this guy's bleeding to death on your stoop, and he's mad at the dirty aprons.
Also,
like,
use a little hydrogen peroxide. Come right out.
It's just like, this world is fucking weird.
There's some good old-fashioned mail fraud and truancy.
Yes. Well, first, we get our first food porn first, where we have the sausages on the big grill.
Oh, I think that was around. It's all kind of in the same.
Okay.
It's still, the sausages are still in the coil.
Yeah, they cook the whole coil, and I assume that they just like kind of reel it out and cut hunks off for people, which honestly,
like bubble tape,
made me want to do that. Yeah, honestly, it made me want to do that. I've bought a coil of sausage, but I've always cut it up. But yeah, I was like, oh man, I want to grill a whole coil at once. That's a cool looking thing.
Put it in your smoker.
No, I could. I want to make it. But it's just the first food porn in the movie. You got this little pan of the peppers and onions, and we got the sausage on the grill, and everything looks so good. This movie just makes you want to eat like an asshole.
It does.
But yeah, you leading up to what you were about to say, the note that I wrote here is like the power of this privilege is clearly so intoxicating to Henry, of like the power that these guys have, and it's like, not even the money, it's the respect that he appreciates so much. Like, he talks, there's a line here about how like one day some kids carried his mom's groceries home, right? And it's like, he's making money, yeah, that's nice, but it's like, everybody in this neighborhood thinks I'm the king of the fucking world, and that's what matters to me.
Yeah.
So you talk about the truancy thing. I didn't want to cut you off.
Yeah, because his father gets a letter from the school that he's been skipping for 3 months, I guess, which like, hey, school, where were you at month 1 and month 2, even week 2, you know? There's a lot of time between here and 3 months.
Yeah. And this poor, you know, beleaguered postal worker gets the shit kicked out of him, and they stick his head in a pizza oven.
And they say, any mail from the school to his house goes to here instead. And then I guess he in turn did all mail for Henry Hill's family went to the pizza place.
Yes. Yeah. And the mom had to complain about it and stuff, that like she wasn't getting their bills.
Yeah.
We also get introduced right around here. We're going to be back and forth out of order, I think.
There's also a great multi-car explosion around this time.
Oh, yes. That's Henry's like first big, criminal endeavor for the family. He's like smashing the windows of these cars and then pouring gasoline in them, and it all blows up. And it looks amazing.
It looks beautiful.
Explosion. Marty knows how to film shit.
Yeah.
Jimmy Conway tips him $20 for bringing him a 7.
There were so many insert shots of hands putting money into pockets and money into boxes and into holes. I was like, good Lord.
Yeah. Jimmy like just peeling off 20s and putting them in everybody's hand for every little thing. And then later we see Henry doing the same thing when they do the Copa, which we'll wait because I got 45 minutes on the Copa. I love they're talking about the stuff that they would steal, and like shrimp and lobster always did the best. It's like, gee, I wonder why.
No shit, dude.
We are introduced here to the young version of Joe Pesci, who calls Henry.
Oh,
Henry.
I fully missed that connection.
Oh, really?
I knew that he was I was like, oh, that kid just disappeared from the movie. I didn't make the connection that I missed.
That was Joe Pesci. Yeah, that's Tommy.
I think he wasn't short enough. I feel like, no offense intended to Mr. Pesci.
Maybe the growth spurt like topped out.
Like we needed to get a the turkey kid from Jurassic Park in here. Like I want someone that size.
But he calls it Henry Hendry, and I have a nephew named Henry, and I did that once, and everybody looked at me like I had 6 heads, and I was like, wow, no one in this room has seen The Godfather or Goodfellas. Okay, cool.
Well, I mean, it's got also a deep cut reference to Goodfellas.
Yeah, he does say it a lot though. They're selling cigarettes that have been stolen, and this is just like he just has no concept of how the world works because these cops are like arresting him. He's like, it's okay. How many cases do you want? And the cops are like, the fucking balls on this kid.
Well, to be fair, all cops in that time period were like, hey, that's a dead body. You got $40?
Yeah.
Like,
no, absolutely.
It was a ham sandwich and a crisp 20, and every cop was on your payroll.
Yeah. But I just love that, the vibe there. But he gets arrested for the first time. He doesn't tell anybody anything. And, he walks out to De Niro, who, my God, does he look like our dad all through.
Oh, my God. All throughout this fucking movie. Particularly in the end, though, because the end is what dad looks like now with the glasses.
Yes. The first time I watched this movie after dad started wearing reading glasses, I had like a
double take moment.
Yeah, and it's like our dad doesn't wear glasses that look anything like these big honkers De Niro's got on, but it was just like the way he put
the energy
and everything. Yeah, I was like, holy mackerel. But at this point, my wife turns to me and she's like, I don't know if this is insulting or not, but Robert De Niro, and I was like, looks exactly like my dad.
In what world is that insulting?
Yes. Well, he's kind of a crazy bastard in this movie. Like, I get why.
But you could say someone looks like someone without attributing them to the crimes.
Yeah. But yeah, he looks so much like our dad, which is probably why all of our friends were terrified of our dad.
Yeah, and the people on Canal Street.
Yeah, well, he did. That was more that he kind of looked like a cop because he had the mustache. Is always my suspicion.
Yeah. Well, and there was that. I think we said this before. They went to a Halloween party once as Da Vinci and the Mona Lisa, and
yes.
and a not insignificant number of people asked why Robert De Niro was at the party. Not to him, but like around him. Like, oh my God, why is De Niro here?
That's so funny. They have like all this joy. They're like clapping for him. It's like you didn't squeal on your friends, kid. You did it right. You did what you're supposed to do when you get arrested.
Mm-hmm.
And we immediately cut to them, like 10, 15, however many years have passed, and they're robbing these airport trucks. It's like the same people.
Ray Liotta's a fucking fox.
He is good.
This age Liotta is just.
I also think this is one I always list in my not that Ray Liotta's like some awful actor in other things, but like man, Scorsese got the best out of him. Like he is just so much better here than I ever think he reached again. And again, not an insult. Like he's.
I'm trying to think if I know him from anything else.
His last credit was, crazily enough, Cocaine Bear, since he just passed away.
Oh, that's right. He was in Cocaine Bear.
Yeah.
He looks kind of like Matt Bomer in this movie.
Oh, I can see that.
Like from certain angles.
Yeah. I really love the symmetry of the introduction of Ray Liotta's character in the beginning and then Lorraine Bracco's character. It's these dizzying one-on-one shots. I just think it's like really, really like great stuff.
Yeah.
And then we go to the bamboo.
I love this bar. I was so sad when this bar got burned down.
I have to say, they need more tiki cups.
They do.
It's not enough tiki.
But I don't think these men want to drink out of tiki cups.
No.
They were on a cruise or like in Hawaii.
Yeah.
But I don't think.
When we see them in Florida later and they're like Bermuda short get-ups, they would be drinking it there.
Yeah, but I don't think they would be, cheersing with a tiki face cup and a little umbrella sticking out and a pineapple slice.
Yeah. Well, their wives would, or their guma.
Yeah, at the other table.
Yeah, but they
with the guma's table.
Glass. Yeah.
There'd be, I don't know, instead of crayons and activities, it'd be like lipsticks and blushes. I don't know.
Like in a little bin.
Yeah, a communal bin for them to all play with compact mirrors.
It's that random blue goop that comes up later in the movie.
Yeah, I think it's a face mask.
It must be, but it was really ghastly blue color. And this is probably the most famous scene in the movie, of course, the "How Am I Funny" sequence.
First off, as we're the one shot through the bar and they're introducing everyone, it felt like a Bob's Burgers bit where they're like Jimmy Two Legs, Jimmy No Nose, and this here is Frog Legs.
I think Bob's Burgers has done this bit. As you said that out loud, I'm having like a flash memory of that actually being a bit that they have done.
It's hard to tell what like my brain's decided Bob's Burgers should do and what they have done. It's hard to differentiate sometimes.
But yeah, I mean, these are all really great. And like, again, this is the kind of movie that like a certain type of person is like, oh, well, all this stuff that doesn't advance the plot. And it's like, you're right, it's a hangout movie. But it's like, I love the part where it's like, there's Jimmy Two Times, who they call Jimmy Two Times because he would always, and then he gets up and he's like, I'm going to get the papers. And it's like the cutting in and out of the dialogue to the voiceover and back and forth and introducing all of these people who like ultimately don't have a ton to do in the movie, generally speaking.
Yeah, they're window dressing.
But they shade out the world in a way that I find very satisfying as a viewer.
Well, it's like with a musical. Some songs are, it's 3:00, let's sing about the fact that it's 3:00. And then some songs are, here's the story progressing through song. You need them both.
Yeah. One of my favorite anecdotes about this movie, and like it's not necessarily particularly relevant to the scene we're talking about, but in looking over stuff made me remember. One of the cool parts of the first DVD version of this I owned was they had this cool walkthrough with like one of the production people, and they were showing like bits of the original script.
Oh, cool.
And Scorsese had like annotated in the margins, like, this is when this song starts. Like as he was putting the movie together.
It's got a great soundtrack.
Cues. It does. A lot of Scorsese's movies do have a great soundtrack. Actually, not to go too down a rabbit hole, but Scorsese filmed the final concert of the band, one of my favorite bands of all time. So he filmed The Last Waltz, which was a kind of a shit show of cocaine and insanity.
That's the poster with the naked ladies on it, right?
Yeah. The leader, sort of the band was Robbie Robertson, and he and Scorsese became great friends, and he was kind of like the music supervisor on Scorsese's stuff going forward. So,
cool.
So like up until I think Killers of the Flower Moon, Robertson was on. Robertson just died as well. A lot of people in this movie have recently passed, but or associated with this movie. Obviously, Robert Robertson's not in the movie.
Is Scorsese The Prestige?
No, that's Nolan, isn't it?
Oh, is it? I'm trying to think of, because I think this might be my first Scorsese movie, unless there's like some random, more quote unquote girl movie he made that I would have watched.
Hugo?
Oh, you know what? I've seen Hugo. You're right. I've seen bits of Hugo.
Okay. That was the one I was like, maybe?
Yeah, I've seen bits of Hugo because it was the inspiration for a play that I costume designed, so I did like watch for the vibe.
Yeah, I've seen a good number of Scorsese stuff. This one is by far my favorite, but I think a lot of people have very, very different ones. All of his collaborations with De Niro are pretty special. The two of them,
I can see that.
Really, they were lifelong friends. Like they knew each other before they were making movies together, and they clearly vibrate on the same wavelength. Like they speak a language together that makes sense, and that's why they keep working together. Obviously,
yeah.
He's in Flower Moon as well.
I obviously. Pesci is incredible here. I still wish I had the what if machine to be like, what if Joe Pesci had been the star of My Blue Heaven? What would that movie look like?
It would have been interesting. I would
have loved that movie.
Yeah.
I would have believed that the main character was an Italian mobster, because I'm sorry, Steve Martin, I just don't.
You just ate it. What's cool about this, and I learned this very recently, is a lot of this was put together by Pesci and Liotta, who were just kind of like fucking around and trying stuff and practicing together, and came up with this and liked it and brought it to Scorsese, and he was like, yeah, do it.
Well, because apparently Pesci said this happened to him. He said this to a gangster.
Oh.
According to IMDb, he told a gangster he was funny, and it kind of elicited this kind of reaction.
Yeah.
I didn't realize this was a fake out in movie world.
Yes. Yeah, it's because it's not played that way until the very moment. It's like this to me is where you completely see, not that we were unsure before, right? Like we've seen Tommy do a bunch of gnarly shit, but when you watch him do this to people that he cares about, you're like, oh, this guy's a fucking sociopath. Like
what's great is this, so literally, this is probably Joe Pesci's first like real time on screen. Like he was in the beginning for 3 seconds, but this is the first time we're seeing like Pesci acting. He was, I don't know, talking for 30 seconds, and I went, damn, I wonder if he ever got an Oscar. And I looked, I was like, oh, for this movie. He got one for this movie.
Yeah, yeah. I was like, this is the one right here. So you're watching it.
I'm watching it happen.
It is...
So much of this movie has the same energy as, I think we talked about this before, the table scene in Birds of Prey, where Ewan McGregor's character, turns off the music in his club and like makes a woman stand on a table and cut off her dress in front of everybody. And it's the same energy of this, like, I don't know, like this scene could end with a laugh. This scene could end with Joe Pesci shooting everyone in the face. This scene could end with Joe Pesci shooting himself in the face. Like, I don't know where this is going to go.
Yeah. And it's one of those things you watch, and like obviously you've seen a lot more of the things that have ripped it off. I've certainly had seen things that had ripped it off by the time I watched this movie, but it's like when I watched Birds of Prey, I was like, oh shit, they're doing Goodfellas, right? And I didn't mean that, like, I don't mean that as a criticism. It's like, it's fine, like everybody rips off everybody.
See, I didn't think of, even having watched them both, I didn't think of it that way, just because I don't think it's the same. I just think it's a similar energy, which just psychopathic, sociopathic characters wants to have that vibe.
Yeah. I don't know. I thought McGregor was doing kind of the smiling maniac thing that Pesci does so well here. But I didn't. Again, I don't mean it to be critical. I certainly enjoyed that Birds of Prey movie quite a bit.
The weirdest parody knockoff whatever I saw was a local realty commercial in New York in a cab, where a 9-year-old girl did it. I think she was like the daughter. It was like a husband and wife realty team. And it was like those two and their daughter and someone else playing cards. And at some point I blacked out. I like blacked back in. I was like, what happened? But she was like, I'm funny. Funny how? And I was like, you're 9. I haven't seen this movie, but I know that this is not appropriate for you, ma'am.
What I really love watching this, and again, it's like when you've seen the movie 10 times, you start just putting your eyes on different parts of the frame in a way that's like satisfying.
That's how I watch Hocus Pocus now.
Yeah, and
find somewhere.
And with and in this one, what I really really loved is the way that, and it spreads in a way that's really cool. So Pesci starts doing this and everyone's laughing, and then they realize like, oh, the mood shifted. Like it's like they feel it in the air, and you kind of watch one by one every guy who's not Ray Liotta. And Ray Liotta does this too, but Ray Liotta is playing it a little differently because he's the center of this rage, that's directed at him. But you watch all the guys at the table slowly go, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit.
Oh, fun.
Shit. Because they've seen how bad Tommy gets, and they're like, oh no, like how far is this going tonight? And then like he pulls the gun out and everyone's
he jokingly pulls a gun on his friends, and I'm like, oh god.
Yeah. He does it a lot in this movie, like many times. And eventually, finally, De Niro's like, would you put the fucking gun away? Like, it's, But, this scene is like just such a masterclass, in the way that it's shot, the way that the frame is composed, the way that Pesci like changes the temperature and makes the pot boil. And like I said, the way all these background guys are just like, oh, like just really suddenly very afraid. It's just magnificent. The bar owner comes over like not long after this tirade and is like, hey, Tommy, you owe me $7,000. And the waiter's like afraid to approach him. He's like, yeah, I'd be afraid.
No shit, dude.
Fucking guy too.
That's your job, my dude.
Yeah. So our next scene is this restaurant owner who is like bringing Paulie in. I love the way this guy talks. Like he's so nervous clearly, and is like, he hates Tommy, but he can't really do anything about it. And so
again, they're saying, look how much money we spend here. It's like, well, you don't.
If you don't pay me,
look how much you're owed. Like,
spending.
Look how much you eat and drink here is the sentence. But you don't spend shit here.
Yeah. and he brings Paulie in, and you're like, oh, this poor fuck doesn't even know what's about to hit him. Like it's like even the first time you watch this movie, you're like, this don't end well.
He ruined you, my dude.
Yeah.
Oh, also, Paulie breaks a bottle over this guy's face.
Yes, because he says shit about Tommy.
That's right.
He insults Tommy, and Paulie won't stand for that because he's one of his guys.
We get some brief homophobia. Shockingly, this movie had way less homophobia than I thought it would.
I was delighted in that when I rewatched it because I assumed there was more of it, but there's just
a handful.
There's not really a lot of and there's also like not a gay character who really gets it in the movie, which is what you would expect.
Yeah. Well, I just normally that's for how gay all these men act. A lot of it, it's like, oh, this fag, blah 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 blah.
Yeah. But they Henry does the voiceover of like, we ran up a huge tab, and then when we couldn't run up any more credit and we maxed the joint out, we set it on fire. And there's that great sequence of Tommy and him like putting all these. They're
dipping it in the sterno fluid, right?
Yes, they look like tampons. They're dipping in the sterno.
Yeah,
and then they're like jamming them up in the rafters of the building so that it'll all get ruined. And then they're just having this nonchalant conversation where Pesci's like, I need you to come on this double date for me. It's like, the girl won't go out with me by myself. And they're having this argument where he's like, Tommy, I don't want to go on a date with you and another girl. I don't want to do that. And the restaurant is like billowing smoke, and they're so consumed by their fight that they're not getting away from the scene of the crime.
In an alternate world, Ray Liotta's character is gay. That's why he didn't want to go on the date. In a sliding doors world. And then all of a sudden we got woman voiceover, and I was like, what?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, and it's like oh, now the movie is now different characters driving this bus, and you're on it with them.
And I'm in love. She's tough as nails. She doesn't take shit.
Yes. Yeah, so Henry stands her up, and she makes Pesci drive around to find him, and then she just
up onto the curb, screaming.
Yes. But like, it turns Henry on.
Yeah.
He loves that he had no interest in this woman until she was like, you piece of shit. You don't treat me like that. Do you know who I am? She didn't say, do you know who I am? But like, I'm not.
She basically said that. She's like, you think you're standing me up?
No, sorry. I just meant, do you know who I am? It's not like she's someone.
No, it's no
person. Yeah. She just lives in the neighborhood or whatever. But yeah, it's like, it's just magnificent. And then
they needle drop, and then he kissed me.
Yes. Yeah, the soundtrack of this movie
it slaps, as the kids
really
say.
Good. Yeah.
So you I assume you've seen, like, watched behind the scenes stuff in this movie and read things.
Yeah.
In this sequence, as they're going in,
the shot, as I call it.
Yeah, the capital T, capital S shot. There's a point right before the kitchen where they like turn the corner and a waiter like dings a bell.
I think there are two cuts. I personally believe there are two cuts.
You don't think it's a oneer?
I think it's a fake oneer.
Huh. So I
think they shot it as a oneer like 5 to 7 times, like however many times. Like, I think they shot endless oneers, but they built two spots into the oneer where they could cut if they had to. I don't know if they did or not, but I think there is two spots for cuts. You just mentioned one, and the other one is a long swing on a I think it's like a large silver kitchen apparatus. It's another turn. And in that turn, you could hide a cut. Whether or not they do, I don't know. And I don't know that anyone's ever tried to go, micro frame by micro frame to find if there's a cut. Because there are two spots.
Assuming it is
actually three. I'm sorry to cut you off. You could also cut where they bring the table across.
Oh yeah,
that would also hide a cut. Sorry, you should say your thing. I apologize.
But assuming it is a oneer, I think there's a point where they go through the back hallway first. And then there's a server, chef kind of person standing at the doorway to the kitchen. And
eating a sandwich that's like my dream.
Oh, God, sandwich. I love it. Just pause for 2 seconds to talk about sandwiches.
Yeah.
I saw something on Instagram or whatever.
Oh, God, you are going to do it. Okay. It's fine. Go.
What?
I thought you were being funny.
No, I mean it.
I just thought you were doing a bit.
No. Okay, pause for 2 seconds. Where this person was like, "Oh, let me show you a technique for grilled cheese or whatever, for a good cheese, something like that." And they put 3 slices of cheese in the sandwich, and then did the thing. And then the caption was like, "I only put 3 slices for the video, guys. Don't worry." And then all the comments were like, "Yeah, I thought it was weird you put so much cheese in." And I was like, "That's not enough cheese."
A lot of people's idea of a grilled cheese is one single slice of American in between 2 pieces of bread. It's categorically
what is wrong with you? Who hurt you all?
I did a couple of grilled cheeses and soups recently. I was a little sick, and not that a grilled cheese is necessarily a sick food, but I was trying to restrict what I was eating. But I did the shred, and then if you
That's what. So
let it,
my
you let it fall out of the sandwich a little bit, and you get those nice cheese burns that I.
Well, I put mayonnaise on the inside and so it's a glue for the shredded cheese, and then the slices on top. And then I did it.
I do mayo on the outside.
I do it on the outside too, but I like mayo.
Okay.
I like the flavor. But I did it in the air fryer because my boyfriend's mom just gave us her old air fryer, and I was like, I'll try it in here. It's good and crispy. But yeah, everyone was like, yeah, I thought it was weird you put so much cheese in, and I was like, you're all wrong. Like, who hurt you?
That's insane. Yeah.
You deserve better.
The cheese is like a pretty minimal grilled cheese.
Yeah, I put shredded cheese on both sides plus like 4 slices of cheese. Get out of here.
I just make a big mound and then put the lid on.
Oh, okay. Fair.
That's easier. Like I put the bottom slice in the pan, the big handful.
And you build
it
in the pan.
Yeah. But
But anyway, so this man eating a sandwich.
He's honking on a sandwich, and Ray Liotta slips a 20 in his vest pocket or chest pocket of his suit.
But he does, when he sees them turn the corner, he dings a bell that you would normally find in a kitchen for like, hey, order up, or I need something on the fly. And I wonder if that was cueing the kitchen to come to life, so that way they didn't.
I bet you're right.
They didn't have to be on for the 5 minutes of them walking the hallway and having business. That way they could be like ding ding.
Yeah.
As soon as they turn the hallway, hey everyone, hustle and bustle to life.
And you can hide it in the context of the movie, because in the kayfabe of the movie, he's ringing the bell to let the kitchen know a VIP is walking through.
Oh, true. That too. Yeah.
Yeah, so you're probably right, and it makes sense in the narrative as well. This I have had one experience in my life that was this cool. And,
You told me. I don't know what's podcast, what's life.
Yeah. I mean, I know you've heard this story, because when it happened to me, I was like frantically calling my whole family to be like, the coolest thing just happened to me. But I was in Savannah, Georgia, and I was going to this restaurant that's very hard to get into, or I really wanted to go to this restaurant that's very hard to get into, and you wait like a couple hours for it. And I was just going to go do it. And I was just like, I don't think anybody else who's on this trip wants to do this.
You were at a wedding, weren't you?
So I think I was actually there for St. Patrick's Day. Savannah, Georgia weirdly has like a big St. Patrick's Day. And the woman I was dating at the time had a friend who lived there and was like hosting us and stuff. But so I was talking about this as we were at like a gathering, and the person was like, oh, like, what's your plan? I was like, oh, I was just going to go stand in line. And she was like, let me call my friend for you. And I was like, huh? She's like, my friend's a realtor here and does a lot of house rentals, and she has some connections, so she might be able to help you out. And I was like, all right. So we get this text that's like, go to the dumpster at the back of the restaurant 10 minutes, 5 minutes before they open. So the restaurant opens at like 9, say. Go there 5 or 10 minutes before they open. Like, all right. So me and my girlfriend at the time and one of her friends had decided to come along, and we go to the back of this restaurant. I wish I remember the name of the restaurant. It's a very famous like soul food place there. It's like a woman's name. I can't recall. But so we go to this dumpster, and I'm like, this is the weirdest thing. And then the back door swings open, sure enough. And they're like, oh, are you so-and-so's friends? And we're like, yeah. They're like, come on. And they walk us through the back of the restaurant. It was exactly like this.
Yeah.
We walked through. They're like, the chicken's bubbling in the deep fryer. The chicken's coming out of the deep fryer. The creamed corn's being put into the bowls. All that beautiful stuff. And I was like filming my feet, like not filming up like obnoxiously, but just like filming it happening, because I was just like, I can't believe
I'm gonna edit. Then he kissed me over top of this.
Yeah, I was like, I'm having a Goodfellas moment. This is like one of the coolest experiences I ever had. And they walked us to a table, and then they opened the doors, and people like walked in who had been waiting in line. Obviously, I was an asshole, but all these people who were waiting in line were like, I could see them being like, why the hell are there people sitting at the table already?
I love it.
They had like put us, and it was like one of those. It's served buffet style, so it's like big communal tables, and then they just put the plates down, and you just like pass plates around, family style, communal style, whatever. But yeah, it was like one of the coolest experiences in my life, and every time I've watched this movie ever since, it gives me such a lovely, warm tinglies. But I love the shot in this one, and I'm sure it's how those people felt, because I objectively was a jerk in that story to the people.
You're not a jerk.
I mean, it's fine. Like I acknowledge it. I'm not saying I wouldn't do it again, but it's like, those people waited a long time. I got special treatment for no reason. But they bring the table in, and then you hear the guy in line be like, I've been waiting 2 hours. Where the hell did that table come from? And the maitre d's like, you're next.
Yeah.
We get some.
They
Batman
literally
champagne.
carry a table in for them. It's wild.
Yeah, and then put the little light on it. They put it in the front of the restaurant or the club rather. We get the Batman champagne, of course. The Dom.
Oh yeah.
And then Henny Youngman doing some one-liner jokes.
It's a bad. Here's the thing.
Please.
Take My Wife is a funny setup that he didn't do it right. It's supposed to be like, women are funny. Take my wife. No, really, take her. Or like,
Yeah.
you have to set it. He literally just goes, take my wife. And I was like, hang on, sweetheart, you gotta say something first.
I think it's like that's his signature punchline, and so he's like, it's like almost like the band doing the hit to start the show.
I guess. I was like,
I recently heard there's some like has-been band opens and closes the show with their big hit. And I thought that was like the genius move of all genius moves, frankly.
so essentially it would be if Smash Mouth opened and closed with All Star.
Yes, 100% that. We get the Air France heist.
And the first it's the wig commercial.
Oh, yeah.
And when they start to shake down the wig man, Karen gets in trouble.
Yes.
So we're
And also, we forgot to mention at the club, Karen's like, you tipped each one of those men $20. What do you do? Your hands don't feel like you work in construction. And he's like, oh, I'm a foreman.
And that's when they then cut to the shaking down the wig man after watching his commercial.
Yes. Maury, his commercial where he jumps in a pool and is like, and the wigs look fine. And they're like, Maury, the wig is dry.
Yeah, you clearly did
You clearly did it.
You filmed this part first.
Yeah.
Karen gets assaulted and calls Henry, who beats the shit out of this country. They were like 2-second scene at a country club, which
Yes.
I don't know if it added all that much. Like,
Yeah.
it could have just, you could have just had her identify the man in this scene and then.
Yeah, I think it's that this is the guy that Lorraine knows from the neighborhood, and like she's maybe also dating this guy while she's going on some dates with Henry. Like it's kind of casual.
Yeah,
just introducing this guy, because you can also, the thing you do get at the country club is this guy talks to Lorraine and Henry just doing the clenched fist from Arthur.
He might as well be bleeding.
Arthur meme. Yeah.
Also, it's a big plot point that she's Jewish, and I was like,
yes,
you're telling me in 60s, 70s, New York, Jewish people were allowed in a country club?
It was perhaps an all-Jewish country club.
Oh, you know what? That could be. Because I was like, I literally just read how Babe and Bill Paley couldn't be members of country clubs because he was Jewish.
Yeah. It wouldn't surprise me if this one was like all Jewish folks.
Okay, like probably the start of a JCC.
Well, also it's just like New York in this era was like so neighborhoody, and like just much like our grandfather used to talk about Philadelphia, that like all of the neighborhoods were clustered around either like a racial identity or a religious identity or a cultural identity, and it was just like this was an enclave of Italians, this was an enclave of people from this area, this and all that. So maybe it was just that part of New York was a large Jewish population, and they all had their own space. I have no idea. I'm
just guessing. So Henry gets a gun and beats the shit out of this guy.
Yes, it's really, really violent. But it's like, this is one of the times you're like, well, this one's kind of satisfying. This guy doesn't.
It's satisfying. Oh, yeah. But yeah. I also love the symbolism of beating him with a gun. Like,
yes,
Henry could have easily just shot him all to hell. Like, shot his face off.
Well, it's like the symbolism, as you said, of like, next time I'm not going to hit you with this.
Yeah. He is, to quote Scarlet Witch, this is him being reasonable. Like,
yeah.
He just know what I could do, motherfucker.
Yeah.
But then he runs back to Lorraine and gives her the bloody gun, and we see her hold it, and I was like, oh, I bet later in the movie that she's going to like, I kept this gun and she's going to use it in the moment we didn't know where we thought she was unarmed. Because we like see her hold it, and it's like a close-up of her hand with this bloody gun, and then she folds it and puts it in like
the milk box.
The milk box, and I was like, oh, it's gonna be a thing. Like this is gonna come back.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah. No, it truly, I think, is like showing her hand trembling because she's so turned on by him doing this for her. Because she says like, I gotta admit, it turned me on.
I mean, yeah.
But I like, to me, it's like her hand. She is so smitten with this man. like not only solving this problem for her now, but in perpetuity, that she's like, I'm gonna fuck that dude's brains out tonight.
Moister than an oyster.
Gross.
That's the point.
We cut, and I also love the other beautiful. This is like, again, just like a great edit. The gun gets wrapped in the cloth and put in the thing, and we cut to the wrapped up glass.
There's a lot of good transitions in this movie.
Yes. Yeah. The wrapped up glass for the Jewish tradition of you break the glass to start your marriage. And it's just like, my God, it's just like such a cinematic, like I said to you before, it's like, even if you hate the plot of this movie, which like is perfectly valid if someone does, like, if you like movies, you could just like
Mute.
You could probably mute it and still get stuff out of it. I think the music cues are worth having too.
That's true.
Yeah, like just like watching the edits and the way that this movie is constructed is like so wonderful.
So I wrote this note a couple times, but this is the first time I wrote it. This wedding looks like our grandparents' photo albums.
Yes, absolutely, it does.
In like 20 minutes, we're going to get an actual photo montage that truly just looks like we're flipping through Nana Pop-Pop's like scrapbooks.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, a lot of the outfits, you're like, oh, I could see Pop-Up in that.
Pop-Up and Cookie and Carm.
Yeah. We get the first little glimpse of Scorsese's mom. I don't know if you know this, but Joe Pesci's mom in the movie is Scorsese's mom.
Oh, I didn't know that. I love that. She was so good. I wanted more of her.
She's so charming. And his dad's in there too, real quick. They all have the same glasses.
Okay.
Monster Coke bottles. His dad's in there too. I can't remember who his dad plays. I may have written it down later in my notes, but his dad's also in there. I love all the men were named Peter or Paul or Petey or Paulie, and all the women were Mary. Marie or Mary.
Yeah, Maria maybe?
Yeah, maybe it's Maria, or Mary, whatever.
Yeah.
Maria, whatever. Yeah. No, it's Marie's. I said Mary, but my note is Marie's. Yeah, all they were Maria or Marie. And then there's even the Paul Sorvino where he's like, this is Paulie and his son Peter. No, wait, this is Pete and his son Paul. Even I get confused.
Yeah, although I will say there weren't enough nonsense nicknames, like our grandfather Vincent, who was called Jimmy.
So I have been thinking about this one a lot because I've shared this anecdote with some frequency. I could see where you hear Vinny and think it's Jimmy.
I mean, I guess.
Or like in an effort to Americanize yourself, you turn Vinny into Jimmy. Because I think that I really do think it was like an Americanization thing, was to be less outsidery. That is.
But Vincent doesn't feel. It's not like it was Vincenzo.
No, that's true. But like, you know, I think now you might encounter Vinces who aren't Italian, but I think at the time you probably only encountered Vinces who were Italian. And so it was just a way of like maybe making yourself be a little more American. I don't know that. That's just my personal guess. As I pondered this.
Yeah, it's definitely like, I don't think it's like a common, like a go-to Italian.
It's a Philadelphia. It is a thing in Philadelphia of the era of our grandfather for sure, but it's not, beyond that.
Our grandmother was Joanne, but Josie.
Yeah. Well, she's Josephine.
Josephine. I thought she was Joanne. No, Josephine.
Yeah. And she was Joe, which is logical.
Yeah. Or Josie.
Yes. I think her friends growing up called her Joe. Pop-Up would say Joe.
Okay.
So I always.
Oh, you know what? No, I'm getting, because I get mail for a Joan Leno, and I'm like, that's not.
Yeah. No, not her.
I was like,
who that is.
I don't know who that is.
She could be related. I just don't know her. We get the envelope.
So many envelopes full of hundos.
Yeah, and they're dancing, and she's like, what about the bag? And he's like, oh, you don't have to worry about that bag here.
Yeah.
And it's like, he doesn't say this, but he's like, there's more guns in this room than a police armory.
Yeah. Unless you see Jake Peralta in a curly wig, I think we're fine.
Yeah. And then there's a great scene where Lorraine Bracco's mother, who I think is really good in this movie.
Yeah,
her dad is like such a funny bump on a log, but the mom is great. Sorry, I stepped up.
No, I love her. Although I did start to get confused that like I thought Maury was his father-in-law.
Maury the wig guy?
Yeah, and then the one later in the end, because I was like, he talks about Belle, and I was like, I thought Belle was his mother-in-law. That's why I started to get a little confused towards the end.
I don't remember the mother-in-law's name, so maybe it is Belle. But the Lorraine Bracco's father is sitting on the couch. He's only in this one scene, I think.
Oh, is he? Okay.
he's like reading the paper and like not participating in this fight. Like Lorraine Bracco and her mom are having like a teenage girl mother fight.
It's very teenage girl.
And obviously it's because Henry's not home yet, and clearly Karen is upset, but her mom pointing it out is making it worse. And then of course Henry walks in the door, and the two of them immediately light into him, and he just turns around and walks right
silently
back out of the house. Yeah, like not a word of acknowledgement, nothing. And then it turns to like, wait, no, don't leave, don't leave, don't leave, don't leave. And he just starts laughing and gets in the car with Joe Pesci. It's like 6:00 in the morning. It's ludicrous.
Yeah.
But it's like, Mom, he has friends. He's spending time with them.
Yeah, right?
We go to the Mary Kay party, which is when Lorraine meets all of the Maries.
Ileana Douglas is there.
Yes.
Of rock and roller coaster fame.
Yes, that's true.
I hope they keep her when they retheme. Get her back in the studio. Come on.
Ken Marino, too. No lines. Just be there.
Yeah.
And there's a great thing where the one woman's talking about somebody made a pass at her or, did something she didn't care for. And it's like, but how can you tell him? And the other woman's like, well, Vinny would kill him. You can't tell her.
Yeah.
You can't tell him that.
Yeah, exactly.
They're all like, they're not doing a bit. It's not like people do exaggeratively like, oh, I'd kill that guy. It's like, no, these women are like this.
They are complicit and okay with it.
Yeah. He would do a murder and I can't have that on my hands.
Mm-hmm.
And then
they all had bad skin and wore too much makeup, is how Lorraine Bracco described them.
Yeah, and the outfits are awful. It's all these pink, like shushy, whatever nightmares.
It's like
but I love
like a chintz pantsuit.
Yes, and I love the way that this woman tells this anecdote, which is like so clearly full bullshit. Where she's like, next thing you know, the gun goes off, this kid gets killed, and it's like, no, he fucking murdered somebody. Like guns don't just like casually do this.
There's a lot of work goes into making sure guns don't do that.
Yeah. Like
also looking at you, James Cameron in True Lies. That's not how guns work.
Yeah. Although I will give that scene a pass because I do think it's hilarious.
It was hilarious, but like, come on.
And then Karen's talking to Henry after this, like, talking about the prison thing. And he's like, guys like me don't go to prison unless they want to. He wanted to get away from his nagging wife.
Yeah. And then we cut to actual like photographs, high flash photographs that these are the ones I was like, oh shit, no, I could probably go into my photo box and pull out 10 photos that look just like this from Nana Pop Pop.
Yeah, about them going on vacation and stuff.
Yeah, vacations, partying, drinking in like cabana chairs.
Oh, the birthdays too, with like the men in the shirts, the specific like not quite Hawaiian, but in that ballpark, and then wearing the little party hats and smoking the cigarettes.
Or a cigar. I feel like there were a few cigars in this movie.
Yeah, oh, plenty. Honestly, like I've never been a cigarette smoker. This movie, you kind of want to.
Kind of makes you want to.
Yeah. Like I've had a cigar 10 or 12 in my life, but it wasn't the cigar that I was chosen for. It's like, man, I kind of want a cigarette.
Yeah, you look at they look kind of cool.
They all make it look so like pleasurable.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. I get why they've like wanted to make it less. They wanted to put less smoking in movies because you watch a movie like this and you're like,
well, the irony is we've seen Kurt Russell smoke a lot, and I don't think we've ever had we've ever made that statement before about that. And he is the king of cool.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Kurt Russell makes smoking look very cool when he does it, but there's something about the way that like when Jimmy Conway lights a cigarette, it looks like such a pleasurable act. I'm just like, oh yeah. I love De Niro in the casual wear too in this montage of shots. So he's got the like I said, there's like Hawaiian-ish shirts and
they're close enough. Shorts. They're like bowling shirts.
Yeah. Bowling shirts is a good way to put it.
And this is where we alluded to in the beginning, where someone gets out of jail. What's it? Breps?
Billy Bats. But also, you're leaving out a particularly memorable scene.
Oh, the weird blowjob moment?
Where she's like, I want to go shopping. And he's like, all right. And
how much money? And she holds up her fingers.
like 3 inches apart. And then gives him a blowjob. She starts to give him a blowjob, and he goes, oh, all right. But yeah, this is Billy Bats, who also was in The Sopranos. He was one of the head in The Sopranos. He's one of the crime family heads who I can't remember the name of the character right now. But he knew Tommy back in the day when Tommy was like
Was a
doing odd
shoeshine
jobs,
boy.
much like Henry. Yeah, it's the same thing.
Also,
Henry
we have to admit, Tommy was wearing a full suit when we met him as a 10-year-old, 11, 12-year-old.
Yes.
So, like,
I don't think you get a shot of Joe Pesci in the cabana wear.
oh, never once. But I'm saying when he was when Henry Hill was a 12-year-old, 13, teenager, whatever, he just kind of dressed like a teen, like a young kid of the era. But young Joe Pesci always dressed like Joe
Always
Pesci.
had a suit. Yeah. And honestly, this scene with Billy Batts I find really interesting because, like, the first thing he says is not a full compliment, but is complimentary, right? Where he's like, this guy worked his ass off. He always had the shoe shine. He did a great job with it. Like, it's no wonder he's standing here like this now because this guy always worked so hard, right? Yeah. Like, he's clearly being a dick.
I think he says, get your shoe shine box. He makes the jab first, then backs it up with a compliment, quote unquote. Then goes back in. And again, this scene had the same energy as the table scene in Birds of Prey.
Yes. And like at the moment where Joe Pesci leaves with his date, and you're like, oh shit,
something bad's gonna happen.
Oh, something bad's gonna happen here. And he's like, keep him here, don't let him fucking leave. And he's like frog marching his date out the door so he can take her home, so that he can deal with this guy. And then we cut back in, and this is also the great music cue stuff. They play Donovan.
Under the Water, which I know from Futurama.
Yes, is it Under the Sea?
Below the Ocean.
Yes, that's what it is. Thank you. I was like,
it's the song when they go to the lost city of Atlanta.
Atlanta, more than just a Delta hub.
There's a Coca-Cola bottling plant and the Delta airport.
The twist in that episode where Fry is like, "Oh, I'll have sex with this mermaid," and she's like, "I laid my eggs in the corner, and now you fertilize them." He's like, "Ah!"
Yeah, right. And it's Parker Posey.
Yeah. But this is like one of the most violent sequences in the movie. But even this like really like super violent scene is shot in such a way that like it puts it more in your head than on the screen.
The camera
like is like
maybe my brain's making it up, but it feels like the camera like flies over the people. Like as Pesci comes in, Henry Hill like runs to the door to lock it
and like lock it. Yeah.
And the camera's like flying over them as Joe Pesci like beats the shit out of this, shoots him.
Yeah. And we get the De Niro kicks for the first time in the movie. He does them a few times, but De Niro has this classic little like wrestling style stompy kicks. And then the craziest part is Pesci being like, I didn't want to get blood on your floor. I'm so sorry. Like he's like genuinely very sad that he made a mess in Henry's nice restaurant. Not that he killed this man.
Well, that's what I kind of love about it in the like sociopath sense, that like that's all the conversation after a death. Immediately the conversation is a very practical. Okay, well I don't have any fucking lime. So you have to dig the hole because I'm not cleaning up your mess anymore. Like it's all very practical, and like from an acting standpoint, like would be.
De Niro is like, I dented my fucking shoes. Like he's pissed off that he has to get his shoes fixed.
Exactly. I would love to play a character like this just because there's so much like you can swing as big as you fucking want, and then like the comedy to me comes in those moments of I didn't mean to get blood on your floor. Like while he's a man's face is like wrapped, like he's got pieces of teeth and face on his fist.
Yeah. And they're actively wrapping him in sheets so they can put him in a trunk.
Tablecloths.
Yeah, tablecloths. Thank you. That's obviously what it is. Yeah, it's a movie that's like pretty funny, but is just like,
funny for like, to me, it's similar to how Heathers is funny. Like it's that same like pitch black. Like if you're not ready for it, it's not funny.
Yeah, exactly. So they like they drive out to the middle of nowhere to they're going to drive out to the middle of nowhere.
They need to get a shovel.
There's this like housing double. They have to get a shovel, so they go to Pesci's mom's house, or I think he lives with her.
I think so. I can't. Yeah, it's a little unclear, but I think he does.
Yeah. He like maybe he has his own apartment, but he sleeps there a lot, whatever it is. But she's awake, and then she's like, "Oh no, I'm gonna make you guys something to eat."
It feels very much like our grandmother did.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Dad told the story of her making breakfast for them. Didn't he tell a story of them coming home in the middle of the night and her making food for them?
No, it was
I remember
they got home drunk.
Oh Oh, yes.
And she woke them up banging pans, and I think like banging a pan and saying there's, but it was a full breakfast downstairs.
Yeah.
So
it was
the pan was saying don't get drunk again, and then the food said I always love you.
Yeah. She woke them up at like 6:30 when they all were clearly like dead with hangovers.
Which she was no stranger to.
Yeah. They partied.
Yeah. But I also like the ice cream needs to thaw for a little bit. Do you want a popsicle while you wait? Like that energy.
Yeah, for sure. I can't quite tell what she makes here. I always assumed it was pasta, but then De Niro puts ketchup on his pasta.
I saw him put ketchup on his plate, and I wanted to know.
Yeah.
De Niro as a human would never do that. I have a hard time believing De Niro as a human would put ketchup on pasta.
But like Jimmy Conway's not Italian, so like maybe Jimmy Conway likes ketchup on his pasta. Like,
oh,
be a fucking weirdo.
That's true. I keep forgetting that they're not full. Like, it's some weird like blood quantum nonsense.
Yeah. Well, Jimmy Conway is just fully Irish. He's not Italian at all.
Oh, really? Oh, I just assumed he was halfsies.
Yeah. Liotta's character is halvesies, and Pesci's character is a full Italian guy, but Jimmy Conway is just Irish.
Oh, I didn't realize.
Yeah. But I was like, is it eggs? Like, eggs is the more practical thing for her to have made at this point, right? Like, she's got some like leftover pork chops that she reheats. She makes some.
But 100%, she got noodles. She got noodles and she got gravy.
Oh, absolutely, she does. Absolutely, she does. There's certainly no way that she doesn't. But I just was like, this is more of a time for eggs, maybe, but I can't tell what it is. So, but she's really sweet. I
love her. I want a movie of her.
Yeah.
I want the sequel to Goodfellas. I want 2 sequels to Goodfellas. I want the Lorraine Bracco story, and I want Joe Pesci's mom's story. And they both better be the same length as this movie.
She's so sweet in this scene that like when they talk about all the stuff later with Joe Pesci being killed, actually sad.
It's heartbreaking, but not for him. For her. Like you're a goblin monster, Joe Pesci.
Yeah, he is.
But I love your mother.
You're not sad he's dead, but you're sad that his mother doesn't get to have the open casket.
Yeah,
they did to him. Like it's really well done.
So they this is the scene from the beginning. Where
also we get the painting. Can't forget the
two dogs.
One looking this way, one's looking that way, and the guy's in the middle. He's like, "What do you want from me?"
Yeah,
perfect art criticism.
It feels very improvised.
Yeah.
So the scene in the beginning, they kill the guy, they bury him in upstate New York, and then we get some casual racism about Sammy Davis Jr.
Yeah.
And I was like, you're stepping out on Karen. You're stepping out on Lauren Bracco. Get the fuck out of here. With her?
It's crazy. Yeah.
With that?
So you don't get any tweets. But yes, agreed. It's crazy.
What? What tweets would I get?
You said Lauren.
Lorraine.
Lauren Bracco.
Oh, I meant Lorraine, yeah.
Yeah, I know you did. I was just saying. At first, it's Ilana Douglas, right? And then
No, it's never Ileana Douglas. It's...
Okay.
It's the same woman in this scene, and then later when he buys her an apartment, and then later it becomes Debbie Mazur.
Okay. Oh, yeah, I said Fruza Balk. It's Debbie Mazur.
I mean, it's very similar energy.
Yeah, no, it's very similar actresses. That is a borderline to be more Courtney Cox.
Oh, yes, it is. Demi Moore is in the new Feud show, and I keep thinking she's Courtney Cox.
I will say, I had no disrespect intended. They both look nice, but they both have had a bunch of work done, and now I think they look less alike as
That's fair.
Adults. Yeah,
that's fair.
I just wrote the racism. The knife also that they take from Joe Pesci's mom's house is a freaking monster.
It's like the one I found in a Marshall's the other day and sent a picture to you.
Like the size of your forearm.
The full size of my forearm because it's for an industrial kitchen.
Yeah. We got more crooning. We're on the Sammy Davis Jr.
I wish music was not as readily accessible and that this kind of club was still a thing because I could have jobs. I could have a job.
I'm sure there are clubs that have music like this.
Very few and far between. The problem is music is so consumable now. Like any song you want. Oh, I want to hear Taylor Swift sing Ready for It live at 2000 or 2008 concert in Albuquerque. Boop, boop, boop.
Yeah.
And then that's what you're going to get. Whereas
that's
like it used to be you had a record.
Still like live music though.
I feel like casual live music is more of a punchline than anything.
The key is going to New Orleans. To be quite honest with you.
Well,
Because
I'm not going to get booked in New Orleans. I'm going to see it, but I'm not going to get booked in New Orleans.
You never know. They're on the dates with their. It was I forget what the days are.
Fridays are for the girlfriends. Saturdays are for the wives. I think.
The wives. Okay, so they're all out with their girlfriends, and the one is talking about Sammy Davis Jr. and how she could see that a white woman would fall for him, and that turns into like a whole yucky thing we don't need to dissect. But like, of course, these guys are racist. They're also misogynist and homophobic. It's like not surprising. But they find out that they're like looking for Billy Bats. Like people are.
Paul Sorvino says to Henry Hill, like, "Hey, they're looking for him," and Henry Hill lies.
Yeah, and so they know that they're gonna have to go deal with it
because also, so they're looking for him, and also there's going to be a condo development where they buried him.
Yes.
So we get this like Evil Dead looking shot.
Yeah,
of this like harsh red spotlight from behind, so all the men are in silhouette digging up this like grisly bone body.
Honestly, Scorsese is such a nerd for movies. It would not surprise me one iota if he had seen Evil Dead and liked that look and like wanted to do something similar.
It's just it's this movie has a lot of style, but I wouldn't say a lot of the shots are stylized. This shot is
There's a couple, but yeah.
This shot is stylized.
Yeah. I would say like the thing with Sam Raimi, and I love everybody on this podcast loves Sam Raimi. Like Sam Raimi is always doing it. Scorsese sometimes does it.
Okay,
is how I would break them down. Like pretty much every Sam Raimi shot is like something's going on with the camera, and like Scorsese uses that.
Except usually it's like, oh, the tripod is broken and one leg is shorter, so the whole shot is tilted, and we can't afford to go buy a new one.
Right. It's Ted, lay on the ground and make the tripod even.
Oh, the tripod moving is just Ted breathing.
Yeah, exactly.
The camera pulsing slowly.
Ted, you gotta hold your breath. Sam, I'm like wearing the full Loretta suit. It's like Henrietta. I mean, it's kind of like a lot. Shut up, Ted. We're picking you up with the sound. Oh, poor.
Put in these white contacts and shut up.
Sam, I can't see. Sam,
hold this chainsaw.
Spit this soup on people. It'll be fine.
This is where we see Debbie Mazur for the first time, who I know mostly from she's in like 5 minutes of Batman Forever. She and Drew Barrymore are Sugar and Spice, who are Two-Face's like hench ladies.
Oh, weird that Drew Barrymore's in that movie for 2 minutes.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was the time when there wasn't a lot, which I think she needed some help. So Drew Barrymore plays Sugar, who's all like angels and whites and pastels and shears, and then Debbie Mazur plays Spice, which is like latex and leather and
the goth girlfriend.
Yeah. So like, I think the joke is that like they each prepare him dinner, and Drew Barrymore's is like angel food cake and like lemon spaghetti with like a light dressing.
Yeah.
And Debbie Mazur's
angel hair probably.
Yeah, angel hair pasta. Yes, it is. And Debbie Mazur's like, it's dark chocolate, like Black Forest cake, and like crushed beetles in some like it's like the. It's what's his face doing Batman, so there's no subtlety.
Yeah.
What was his name?
Not Burton, but the next guy?
Yes. Schumacher, yeah. I was like, that old queen, what's his name?
The thing that I really like the scene here just like illustrates how disposable they find the women who aren't their wives, because he's like throwing his current mistress on the bed and like clearly like wants to get down, and they're all like, "Oh, stop! She's talking to us." And Debbie Mazur's like, "I'd like a slice of that."
Yeah, she's in line for a slice of beefcake.
Yeah. It's like, oh, clearly he's about.
It's so wild the way they act and treat their wives, whether with each other versus when they're actually with their wives. They're like, you can't divorce her, so make her happy. It's like, well, hang on, hold up.
Yeah. Well, I think it's like you can't divorce her because she knows too much, and if she's your wife, she could never turn on you because you can't compel a spouse to testify against a spouse.
But don't the
ex-wife?
So they all pretend these girlfriends don't know anything.
I don't think the girlfriends know much about the goings on. Like clearly, Debbie Mazar is in on the drugs
Eventually.
and stuff. Yeah, but I don't think this like other girl knows anything about him other than that he's rich and well connected.
Yeah, that's true.
Like he's not talking about business around her. Lorraine Bracco is hearing about business.
Yeah.
Even if it's just like you got to go upstate and do that thing with the other thing. It's just like enough that they all talk in that weird non-code. We're down in the basement playing cards. Here's Michael Imperioli,
who I wrote as Sopranos and White Lotus guy.
He's Spider here, and fucking sociopath Joe Pesci whips his gun out because he didn't bring him a drink, starts shooting at his feet, and shoots this guy in the fucking foot.
And then is like, "Why are y'all mad at me?"
Yeah. Don't make a big fucking thing about it.
Yeah.
So they take Spider to the hospital. Henry goes...
Which I assume was just a veterinarian. Like...
Oh, almost certainly. Although, it wouldn't shock me if these guys had a doctor on the payroll. Like a doctor.
Maybe.
But yeah, veterinarian is usually the trope in these things.
Karen
throws the keys out the window, and she's like, "You're not going out!"
Yeah, and he's trying to gaslight my Lorraine Bracco, and I'm not having it.
Is this also the scene where they show the closets? Or
yes, they're crazy closets.
Yeah, where it's like this rainbow cornucopia of the same outfit.
I love it.
And he has like 200 suits.
It's beautiful, and
he has. It's like when you go to the Men's Warehouse or whatever suit store you go to, and there's like
Joseph Bank,
right? Yeah, Jose Bank.
It's
just like have we told that?
I don't know. We have.
When Andrew was little, he thought that
because I was very into Homestar Runner.
Yeah,
one of the characters was Strong Bad, who talk like this, and so I saw JOS period A Bank, and I didn't know you're supposed to say Joseph because I was a stupid little child.
Yeah,
so I thought
say Jose Bank,
but I thought it was Joseph Bank, like just a bank, but in a Strong Bad voice.
Very casually branded bank.
Yeah, it's Joseph Bank.
Yeah. But like when you go in there and you go to the blues, they have like a wide array of hues in blue, and it's like Henry's like one of each.
I'll take the lot.
We go back to Spider, and this time Spider stands up to Tommy, and
which could go either way. I feel like there is a reasonable world where Joe Pesci's like, "Oh right, I fucking respect you."
Yeah.
That is a world that I can see.
Yeah, you got some fucking balls on you, kid. I like you. And instead, he fucking killed.
Actually, it would have been interesting to have this happen twice. Like, have someone else toe up against Joe Pesci, and Joe Pesci lets him live. Just to, like, show the duality. Because I truly think that it's not wild to think that there's a version where Joe Pesci lets someone live for kind of mouthing off. Because I think he would also be like, "Oh, I respect you."
Absolutely, yeah. There's a world in which it's like, oh, you did the right thing. You stood up to the guy. No, instead he fucking kills him.
Mm-hmm.
Which everyone's like, what the fuck is wrong with you, Tommy?
And immediately, this is where I was saying earlier with De Niro being like, I don't have any fucking lie. You're digging the fucking hole this time.
Yeah.
Lime, not lie.
Yeah, lime.
Although lie also is acidic, isn't it?
Probably,
Caustic,
yeah.
I think is the word.
Yeah. Karen goes after...
I love... She brings the kids and just starts, like, pounding her fist on all, like, the side pieces, like, door buzzer button, and all of the neighbors.
Yeah.
Calling the super.
You have a whore living in 2B.
I will stand here all day and let everybody walking in know there's a whore here. I love it.
And after this, she pulls a gun on Henry.
Yes, she does.
In bed he's asleep, taking a nap or something. It's such a good close-up of her, like, over the barrel of the gun, and then the switches back and forth from, like, Karen with the gun to Henry in the thing. Just, like, really awesome. Both of them look great in these close-ups, and also are, like, bringing so much to the table in, like, micro facial movements and stuff. It's really, really good.
Mm-hmm. I don't love that he gets the upper hand and, like, hits her. I'm like, no, respect her for standing up for her fucking self. If she was a man, you would.
He did that before, but not anymore. Now she has a role to play, and she's not playing it.
Well, don't step out.
You see how the relationship
motherfucker
changes. No, I'm
being Karen. I'm being Karen.
Yeah.
Karen Hill.
Yeah. And this is that intervention you mentioned where they're like, what are you going to get a divorce? You can get a divorce. Just get back over there. And
They're like, your wife's talking to my wife, and now I feel like dealing with it anymore.
Now I'm fucking dealing with it. Now I don't want to deal with it. So I'm going to send you on a trip. And when you get back, it's all going to be fine. And they show them going to...
So did they kill his girlfriend? Is that what... Because she disappears from the movie. Oh, no, never mind. I lied. She visits him in prison. I lied.
Yeah.
Forget that.
No, the one who visits him in prison
is Janice.
Is it Janice? Okay, I thought it was Debbie Mazar, but you're right.
They almost feed a man to the lions?
Yes. My wife watching it is like, are they really going to throw him to
Are we going to see this?
Is that in this movie? Yeah, and I was like, no.
But I mean, it doesn't seem...
You would believe it would come. It's absolutely in the bounds of this movie. Turns out the sister of the guy?
Yes, sister. Is a typist at the FBI.
Yes, and so they end up getting 10 years in prison for this little thing.
I thought it was kind of lame that De Niro wasn't in the same prison. I assume that's how it really was IRL.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh, De Niro's gone. But then they're like, Paulie's in prison. I was like, hang on, how long has Paulie been in prison? Like, why didn't you tell me that?
Yeah. Yes. The bit where he says goodbye to Karen, goes to a bar, has a drink with the guys, gets in the back of this caddy, and is like, take me to jail. It's good.
Great. This is the iconic garlic scene.
Oh, the Scorsese's dad is the one cutting the garlic.
I thought it was Paul Sorvino cutting the garlic.
Oh, sorry, the one doing the
there's onions. There's one guy doing onions.
I think that's Papa Scorsese making the sauce. I'm not 100% sure, but that's what I wrote down.
Okay. I wish I had those knife skills.
The thin
I would love to be able to do that and just throw it in the garlic and watch it dissolve, quote unquote.
Babish did it, and it.
I mean, that makes sense. You would have to get it less than paper thin.
Yeah. But Babish does make a version of it with a razor blade. That's fun to watch. If you have not watched that Binging with Babish video, it's worth it. We have the drugs coming inside, and Karen is visiting, and this is what you're right. She does see Janice on the books, and she's out there we're on our own.
She's screaming, being like, "I'm sneaking prosciutto up my panties." And you got Janice visiting you?
Yeah. And he's like, well, I'm selling drugs. Janice is bringing me drugs. And it this is really interesting too, because this whole movie is about this whole credo of these people is well, if you're loyal to the people, they take care of you. And it's like, okay, well then you go to jail and no one gives a shit about your wife because she's out there struggling. She's on welfare.
Well, she says that Paul Sorvino got out and won't talk to her.
Yes. And
even though later he invites them over.
Right. Well, it's but it's just the whole thing is Sorvino isn't gonna break off money for her because who knows what happens with her husband, right? And it's it's just the whole point. All these people preach all this loyalty and all that stuff, and then when it comes down to it, none of that.
Yeah, it's not real.
4 years later, he gets out.
Every time I see a length of time in a card like that, I read it in the fucking SpongeBob voice. 4 years later.
I love the reveal here where he's showing this bag of drugs to Pesci and De Niro, and then it was revealed that they're at the fucking parole officer's office. It's
it's immediately after Sorvino says, "You got to get out of the mob."
Mm-hmm.
I got you a job to get you out of jail. Now you got to get out of the mob. And it's like, well, I mean,
yeah,
you were able to get out when you're the tip of the pyramid. You can leave.
Yeah. But also he's don't get involved with this drug shit. It's bad news.
Oh, was he telling him not to get involved in drugs, not the mob?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He was saying get out of the drugs.
Got it.
And we go from the hard cut of the threatening him not to be fucking around with drugs to the big snorting pile.
It is a big old snorting drug pile.
Yeah.
It literally looks like powdered sugar.
Oh, it does. And they make a ton of money very quickly, and we buy this really ostentatious house with these Asian-ish influences
and mid-century modern too. There's the I love a reveal wall. She hits a button. She has a remote control for her house where she hits a button and the walls slide open to reveal a bar. Yeah. It's almost like the Flintstones house. I feel like it's it's chunky.
Yeah, I could see that. This builds up to the Lufthansa heist, which is a real thing that happened. They
also,
really did
this heist,
a ton of money from
the first plane heist they made it was hey, I'm the midnight to 6 a.m. guard. You walk in, say you lost luggage. You walk out. I'll slide you the key. You walk out with the money. don't even pull a gun. And then all of a sudden they're like, we got Jimmy Two Legs over there driving the car, and we got Jimmy No Neck doing this, and Jimmy No Nose doing that. And I was like, well, what happened between then and now?
Because I think it's because the volume that they had to steal was such that they needed a truck.
Oh,
like it's a physically large amount of stuff that they're stealing, so they need like a moving truck.
Yeah,
and so they need like a wider net of people to kind of spread this around, which is how Samuel L. Jackson ends up in the gang for a bit. He's like a musician, I think.
A very, very young, skinny Samuel L. Jackson.
Yes. Yeah, he's like a rail in this. And then we meet Lois, who's the smuggler, and she's got this baby that she's using to smuggle drugs, which I find just
delightfully awful.
Yeah. I think it's like they make it that it's the formula powder.
I think so. And then he does the classic taste, put his pinky in and taste the cocaine.
Yeah.
And then they're making...
Which, like, I buy it when a drug user and dealer does that. When it's cops, I'm like, how is this part of the training?
Yeah. Do you have to, like, snort the good stuff?
Yeah.
And then they're making, like, Coke bath bombs?
They, like, use, like, a thing to compress
into, like,
so
a bath bomb. It's just like, what are we doing with it?
Yeah.
That's gotta be bad for your skin.
It doesn't seem like it'd be a good
According to Stevie Nicks, she burned a dime-sized hole in the middle of her nose.
Yeah. And then Ray is in the shower. Ray Liotta's in the shower when he hears the radio update on the Lufthansa heist, and
it is
love this, like, pure
sexual.
Joy.
Like,
yes.
He's hard.
It was also passed around a lot in the Phillies run to the World Series with they had Jimmy Rollins on the team, and he had like a big hit, and it was like, Jimmy!
Okay.
Yeah. I forget this dude's name, but he's got this really great hair. I want to say his name's Mo, but he rolls in with his... Jimmy's like, all right, we got the money. Nobody do anything fucking stupid. Nobody buy anything. Nobody try any attention. And they're having a Christmas party, and these fucking idiots just come parading in. One guy's wife's got a new mink. The next guy's got a pink Cadillac.
Coupe.
The next guy... Yeah. And
also, it's so funny to hear them talk about furs because, like, they're fucking worthless now.
Yeah. Oh, they are.
I got
a mink coat.
I got a fur that still had the receipt in the pocket, and like at the time it was purchased, it was like, I want to say $3,200.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if it was 3 or 4.
And I was like, and now it's like literally I wear it as costumes because nobody wants it.
Right. Well, I mean, attitudes have changed.
Obviously, I'm not negating the fur industry is garbage.
Yeah.
But thrifting fur, I feel like it's already been killed and whatever. Like, it shouldn't be going to landfill.
Yes. Yeah.
No new fur is how I feel about it.
Yeah. I love as more of these dudes come in with these, like, the mink coat in the car, and Jimmy gets more and more angry, the music drops out. Like, the temperature of the scene rises, and therefore we lose the music.
But it does, they do play the like, Christmas song.
The transition, the music comes back on. Like, when he pushes that guy out of the bar, he's like, get the fuck out of here, go return the car. Then they drop the music back in. But it's like, as Jimmy gets more and more angry, the music drops out. It's like a really good vibe. But yes, they play Darlene Love that of course we like.
Well, and it's funny because Jimmy says, make sure you don't do anything like, can you believe these morons? Make sure you don't buy anything expensive. And then he comes home with this cut to, I bought the most expensive Christmas tree, which like is the perfect way to buy something expensive that it's not flashy. It's not in front of your house. No one's going to see it.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And like, how does Jimmy know what a Christmas tree costs? He doesn't give a shit.
It's a very Barbie Christmas, this house.
Yes. Yeah. There's also a little throwaway with Ileana Douglas where Tommy is like, don't you even fucking look at another man in this bar. And she's like, if I even look at another man,
he's so jealous.
She's clearly like, she's all a Twitter over it. And it's just like, lady, that's very unhealthy.
It's bad. You're going to die.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a very Barbie Christmas in the house. And then all of a sudden, Pesci and someone else walk into Samuel L. Jackson's house.
Sam Jackson.
And I was like, I feel doesn't feel good. I don't know why my spidey senses are tingling. And then they shoot him, and I was like, well, why did they shoot him? And then I like that the movie like tells you after. Yes.
There's also a great line here with the other guy. Pesci's like, oh, we'll make you some coffee. Don't worry about it. And the guy starts like futzing with a coffee pot, and Pesci, they shoot him, and he's like, all right, take that coffee to go. And the guy starts leaving with the coffee pot. He's like, don't take the fucking coffee
It's a
pot.
fucking
What are you,
joke.
fucking idiot. Yeah. Yeah, so this is like they
So this is De Niro.
everybody-
De Niro is our father at a wedding in this scene because Henry Hill walks in and is like, "Oh, have a drink. Come on." He's like, "Well, I need to talk." He's like, "No, have a drink first. Come on, we're gonna have some fun." Throws his arm around him. And it's like it's very dad at a wedding energy.
Absolutely. I never noticed before. Leota is wiping his nose a bunch in this scene, and I think it's like the cocaine addiction has already started to grab him. And like obviously, very shortly we're gonna get a lot about the cocaine, but it was like this little bit with the nose. I was like, oh man, this is crazy. This is like not something I've seen before. Tommy, we find out that Tommy's gonna get made.
I wish they had explained that because they're like, he's gonna get made, and I was like, they're gonna kill him? What is that? Wait, they're happy about this. What's happening?
Whacked is killed. Made is good.
I don't know.
You just should watch more Mafia stuff. You just know all the lingo. But I get it. I understand that it does not. The movie does not hold your hand on any of that stuff. You are correct 100%. We see Jimmy scheming here, and there's like this whole thing with Maury. Is like,
He's the one who like organized the Lufthansa.
Yes, and he's like, I make my nut and I fucking walk away forever. I want my fucking money. And Leota's like, do you want to go talk to Jimmy? Really? You want to go talk to Jimmy? I'll let you go talk to Jimmy, but we both know what's going to happen. And Maury like kind of gets it all a thing. But you can watch De Niro. There's this incredible scene, and I wish I wrote down what the song drop because there's a great needle drop here. But he's like lighting a cigarette, standing at the corner of the bar, and you can watch De Niro make the decision like,
to kill him.
Happens down his face to kill Maury. Yeah, he's like watching Maury walk towards him, and you watch Jimmy Conway decide to kill this guy as he walks.
And then he tells Henry, "Bring him here to this tonight. Bring him to this location tonight." And it's like, you know what that means. And he's like, "God, I was hoping I wouldn't have to do it." And then De Niro randomly goes, "You know what? Forget tonight." And you're like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. And it's actually, we just didn't want to make Ray Liotta have to do it because he knows that they're friends.
Yeah.
And it's like, he's like protecting him from it. Meanwhile, poor Maury's wife comes in and is like, you know, distraught at where could he be and looking for help. And Ray Liotta's trying to help. And then he ends up talking to Jimmy and realize what happens at this little diner. And they leave the diner and Jimmy goes to like bang on the window of the FBI guys who have been surveilling him so that they wake up to follow him.
And then we just get like a montage of dead people, like the pink.
It's set to Layla.
The pink coupe couple is dead in their car, which is it's interesting that that's the only couple where she also got it.
Yes, yeah. Maybe she was just with him.
Then there was 2 dead guys at a trash compactor,
including Frenchie, the guy who was like working at the airport.
Yes, and then
Carbone is the guy with the hair.
Okay, my favorite was the most like visually impressive one is the meat truck one. That makeup job and the whole set dressing about it was great.
It took 3 days to thaw him out for the autopsy. So Tommy's getting made. Jimmy can't contain his joy at this. He's like got this system where he's calling on the phone. They're at the diner. They keep calling at the thing. And we see Pesci get picked up by a couple of Goombas.
The hair on the back of your neck starts to tingle a little bit.
And he's like, he has no fucking idea. He's like, oh, when you got made, what was it like? It must have been 100 years ago. Ha 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 ha. And there's this great bit of acting from Joe Pesci where you see him realize what happens when the door opens and there's nobody.
He opens the door and he even says, "Oh no," and then just gets shot in the head.
Yeah, and that's the whole like, you know, they didn't even set him up so his mom could have a open casket at the funeral.
It's very good acting on Pesci's part. Again, I wonder if he ever got an award for acting.
Yeah. Also, I think this part with De Niro is incredible too, because like Jimmy Conway doesn't even understand how to be sad. He's like, he breaks
men crying.
Like,
it's kind of cool to see.
Yeah. But it's like he doesn't even know how to be sad. He doesn't know how to, like, he's crying and doesn't even know how to handle it. It's really wild.
And in voiceover, they explain that it's revenge for Billy Bats.
Yes, because he was a made guy, and you can't fuck with a made guy without permission.
Billy Bats. I'm sorry, Billy Bats sounds like a fucking persona that Laszlo would use in What We Do in the Shadows.
I mean, he's probably William Batsiglore or something, right? Like his name is probably like, incredibly absurd.
Hello, I'm Billy Bats, a regular human bartender.
Yeah. This is where we go to full drug mania. This is like the end of this movie is so rapid. Like the cutting, and it's like
Ray Liotta
increases.
So I've never done cocaine, as we've talked about.
Yeah.
But I have tried a lot of ADD medications to find the right one for me because I actually have ADD, and that's part of being on these medications. Is like, that one didn't work. Try this one. Try a dose of this one, and it's like it's awful.
Yeah.
The one time I tried Ritalin. Or was it? It was either Adderall or Ritalin. This sequence in the movie felt like how I felt.
Oh,
like,
wow, that's awful.
Everything was the aperture was huge. If I didn't write down every syllable that my professor was saying in my notebook, I was gonna grind my teeth to nothing. Like I was on it for 3 days. I was like, nope, this isn't it. That ain't it, kid.
Yeah, it's like full mania, but even like the editing of the movie speeds up.
It feels
so the movie feels fast.
This part of the movie feels like how I felt on Adderall.
Yeah, it's really impressive filmmaking.
He's real paranoid.
He's like rattling off. Yeah, he's seeing helicopters. He's not sure if they're there, and he's just like he's got all these tasks he's trying to complete. It's just like one thing after another. He's got to pick up his brother,
and it also feels like having ADD. Like, I'm making the sauce, then I got to do this thing, and then I got to come back to the sauce.
Yeah, Jimmy, I brought these silencers for Jimmy, and then he doesn't want the silencers. Now I got to flip the silencers to the other guys. Blah, 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 blah. He almost gets into a car accident. He goes to the hospital to pick up his brother, and the doctor, who is the guy I mentioned, Isaiah Whitlock Jr., who played Clay Davis on The Wire, is just like a bit part in this movie. But he's like, "You look awful. Let me give you some."
Have a Valium.
Starts giving him drugs. Yeah. So he brings Mikey home, the brother. They're making meatballs, and they're just like fully strung out here.
He and Karen are like coked out.
Yeah. They're coked to the gills.
Like, they might as they could have made a movie about all technology on Earth turning on you. They're on that much cocaine.
Yeah. They're trying to make a deal with the Pittsburgh people for drugs. He has to go out and do a thing, and he's like, "Don't let Karen touch the gravy," which I think is really funny. Like, he does not trust. Yeah. And we were talking about this after my wife and I was just like, it's funny how like cooking, which is typically thought of as like a feminine thing, all these guys in the movie want to cook. And it's like, yeah, they don't trust their wives to handle it, which is insane.
But they all learn from their, like, Joe Pesci's mom was all of their mom, essentially. So it's funny that like, even though it's definitely a matrilineal skill, the men are like, no.
Yeah. Henry visits Debbie Mazar for some drugs, and she wants to get down. He's like, "I don't have time for this. I got too much to do."
He like grabs the bag of cocaine and laughs at her face as he runs out of the door.
Yeah. They sit down to dinner, and Lois, the drug smuggler, is like making bread balls. She's like pulling hunks of bread and rolling them into balls with her fingers. It's a very weird bit of actor.
She also she fucked up earlier and called from the house phone.
Yes.
And the redacted plane ticket is such a silly choice, cinematography wise.
I like it though. Yeah, I like it a lot, but it is weird. She needs her lucky hat, so he's like, "I gotta go just drive and get this fucking hat." He goes to the driveway, and it's like, "Oh shit, the cops are here." And then Karen flushes all the drugs down the
Karen in like a full like
correct move.
Octopus. She's walking like an octopus on land, just like grabbing the walls, throwing herself down the hallway, trying to flush this cocaine, puts a gun in her panties.
Yeah. So she flushes it. Henry gets bailed out of prison, but they like
all the accomplices got made.
And he had just yelled at Debbie Mazar for not cleaning up, and like they have all of the stuff that he was bitching about is there and covered in cocaine. And so he gets home and he's like looking for the coke, and Karen's flushed down the toilet. And this is, I don't know if you remember when we saw Stephen Kellogg at The Point, but they did a whole riff on this where they were doing lines from movies they watched on the
remember that vaguely, that concert, but I don't remember.
They were just playing a bass riff and doing lines from movies they watched on the bus, and a bunch of them going back and forth. "Karen, why did you do that, Karen?"
Don't remember. I love that.
And it's just like objectively, Karen made the
correct choice, dude.
The cops would have found these drugs. He's like, they never would have found it. Like, yes, Henry, they would.
I know you're on enough cocaine to take down a brown bear, but
yes,
my dude.
Yeah. Yeah, they're just two junky losers.
I know. And so he falls asleep with a gun and then goes to Paulie for penance. Paulie gives him $3,200 and says, "Get out."
Yeah. as he's making this beautiful looking sausage and
Oh my god! I want sausage and peppers, or peppers and eggs.
Yeah. Karen goes to see Jimmy, and Jimmy's like, "Oh, we got some really nice dresses. Why don't you get them?" And he's like, clearly trying to send Karen down this alley to get whacked. This is like one of the best.
I was like, if you fucking kill Karen now, I'm turning the. I will have like Tripp. I'm not watching the last 10 minutes of this movie because I don't believe it anymore.
Yeah, he's like, no, go around the corner, and you're like,
she like looks in the spooky shop that's like all backlit men. And she jumps into her car and drives away.
Scary gentleman. Yeah. So we cut to Jimmy at breakfast, and this is with the glasses.
Dad. It's dad.
Yeah. It's just full dad. And the graying hair is just fully our dad. And this is where Henry realizes it's all over for him because Jimmy's like, hey, I want you to do a job for me. And he's never asked him to do that before. So this is the end. So they go into witness protection.
They go to WITSEC. And that's what said Paulie got pinched too.
Yeah. Also, Henry is wearing a Star of David now, which is funny because he had been wearing a cross through most of the movie, and it's like, oh, now I'm my wife's religion.
Well, he probably had to be to get married.
No, he did claim to change, but I'm just saying suddenly now
we've just not because I saw that here. I was like, oh, I wonder if I haven't paid attention to the rest of the movie for that.
No, I think you're right. I think it's clearly marriage related, obviously. So we cut to the courtroom, and I really like this part where he's like giving his deposition in the courtroom, and then it cuts to like this fourth wall break, and like we walk out.
I don't know how I feel about the fourth wall break because it comes out of nowhere.
It does, but it just sets you up to get to the end of this movie a little bit faster, which I think is all of the point.
Fair.
Like we just want to transition to the part where he's like, you know, I ordered spaghetti marinara and I got egg noodles and ketchup. I'm a nobody. I'm a schnook. And then we hit Frank Sinatra's, you know, I did it my way, blah, 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 and we get the like so-and-so died in prison montage.
Yeah, he looks down the barrel of the camera. And then I wonder if anyone double features this with My Blue Heaven, since they basically...
I'm certain you must. The Alamo Drafthouse has to have done that at some point.
Because it's pretty much where it's like one...
Yeah, one that starts here.
Yeah.
So that's why I had always wanted to do it as a double feature. We ended up not doing it that way, but for the podcast, I mean.
Yeah.
Like do a month with both of them. So what are your final thoughts since this is your first time through?
Enjoyable. It's too long, I will say. It starts to like...
Yeah.
I find the last act very interesting because it's so frenetic. So I'm like, you could trim some stuff out the middle.
I get that. I'm happy with the length of the movie, but it is a long movie.
But considering I'm like not in a great headspace mentally and whatever, I was like, I'm not going to have fun with this. This is not going to be I was like fully expecting to have to like start this podcast by being like, I will watch this movie again someday when my brain doesn't hate me when we're on the same team again. But I was able to calibrate myself with Scarlet Witch.
I'm glad that worked. Yeah, it's not the route I would have imagined, but I'm glad that you were able to appreciate it. Because I honestly, after I finished watching it, I was like, he is gonna hate this movie, and it's gonna make me a little sad.
Yeah, no,
I'm curious if having seen this, you think differently about Midnight Run later, because this is such like an interesting, violent, whatchamacallit, and De Niro performance, and now it's not.
Oh,
that is him playing opposite this specifically.
I forgot about Midnight Run.
Yeah. Because De Niro is fully playing against this character in Midnight Run, and that's why I find it so fun. So I'd be curious if you had seen them in opposite order, if your opinion would be
maybe.
I said it up top. This is a masterpiece.
It's very well made.
It's one of the great. It's one of the great films to me. I love this movie, and I enjoy revisiting it every so often. This is not one I do like every year or anything. I got to keep it a little, spaced out, but it's just a movie I have so much love for. So glad that you appreciated it, even if you didn't love it. So hearty recommend for me. It sounded like a recommend for you. So I'm delighted that you enjoyed it. And had you not enjoyed it, that also would have been fine. But it was nice to have a similarly geeking out conversation on a movie I love so much. So thank you so much for listening to the show. We will be back in 2 weeks with the start of a theme month we had recently, WrestleMania. This time, oops, no Carpenters.
Bummer. No offense, Kurt, but Kurt plus Carpenter is some magic.
It's a winning formula. Our first movie there, I believe, will be Kurt Russell's Breakdown. masterpiece of schlocky action cinema. So check that out. Visit us on Facebook or at Dissect the 80s on Twitter. Hit us up, dissectingthe80s@gmail.com. And of course, you should visit patreon.com/dissectingthe80s to learn more about how you can support the show and get yourself some bonus episodes. Thank you so much for listening. I have been Tripp.
I will always be Andrew Leno.
Until next time.
Don't you forget about me.
Dissecting the 80s is a Chum Some of This production. Ow.